stand.
I will call to order. Sorry. Call to order the March 12th meeting of the Dayton City Council. Stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Just so you guys are aware, we're going to do all the fire department stuff about 9:30.
They laughed at you.
I need a motion and a second for the agenda.
I'll make motion.
I'll second.
Travis and Dave, any discussion? Sounds like we want to move G out
Yeah.
after consent. We can probably put it right after consent.
Yep, that sounds great.
Any other changes?
I have several questions around item H. I was wondering if we can move that out.
We can move that out.
We'll put that right after G then, after the consent agenda.
Okay.
I've got a couple questions on J, but I don't know if we have to move it out. I just have questions.
Questions are fine, yeah. If you plan on voting against it or possibly, then we should move it out. But okay, so right now I'm hearing G and H will come out of consent. Any more discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. Motion carries 5-0. Consent. So this would be sans item G and H. I need a motion and a second.
Do we want to
You want to
We
do
got the
swearing
firefighters first?
Yep.
For these?
Oh, that's ahead.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, let's do that. Sorry, Chief.
Good evening, Mayor and members of council. This evening, I have a great opportunity to swear in 7 new firefighters. And they're not all that new. They've been here for about 18 months, and they've put in excess of 400 hours to get where they are today. So when they start, they go through Fire 1, Fire 2, Hazmat, and this year, or last year I should say, not too long after I started, we implemented the EMT program. So that's about 200 hours in itself. So tonight, if I could have those 7 firefighters come forward. All right, well, good evening. Tonight we're going to do the oath of office. So if you raise your right hand, please, and repeat after me. I, your name, do solemnly swear to do my duty as a firefighter for the city of Dayton to the best of my ability, to serve my commanding officers with respect and dignity, to serve the citizens of the city of Dayton with compassion, courage, integrity, and uphold the laws and constitutions of the United States of America, the state of Minnesota, and the city of Dayton. So help me God. All right, if you have somebody that you would like to have them pin your badge on you, if they would like to come forward, please.
Poke them hard. If they don't bleed, it doesn't count.
The families wanted to stay for 1 second, that'd be great.
Don't move.
You can stay, just kind of flip around here. So tonight is a significant accomplishment, not only for your significant other, but you as members of the Dayton Fire Department and family members of the Dayton Fire Department. Because I say this to them on a regular basis when they first start here. As a new recruit firefighter, as you're all aware, you were solo potentially last fall in some capacity up until maybe the last 6 months. So it's not possible to do this without your support of your significant other within the organization. So I sincerely appreciate it. Your support, the community appreciates it. So congratulations to all of you. A lot of hard work done. I look forward to seeing you out in the street. Thank you.
You have a meeting.
Can we recess? Okay, all right. I'll let them indulge.
She wants cake.
Should I just stay? Okay.
You want them to go with you? Dan's like cake.
Cake, yeah. I'll take some cake. All right. On to consent. So I need a motion and a second.
I'll motion.
I'll second.
Okay, discussion. Go ahead, Dave.
Okay, I thought Scott might have something.
No, I don't.
All right. I do have a couple of questions. And I wanted to ask you, Chief Inga, if the patrol officer being hired, or the officer being hired is going to be the patrol officer, or if you've already filled that position.
The two conditionals are for patrol officers.
Okay, thank you. We moved item H and J out.
H and G.
Jay still in.
J still.
J is still in, okay. As it relates to item J, I'm fine with us accepting that letter, but I do have some questions, and I'm wondering if we can't have you walk through that with us at some other time.
Yeah, I had a question about it too, but
So are we gonna have her, I have a question on J two. So is the idea to have Amy talk about it next meeting then, or when are we gonna, I'm fine accepting the memo, because this is what it is, but I have some questions on it also. So what's our actual plan? We have her back again, or talk about it
That's
next?
up to the council.
Or do it now?
Amy is planning on being here tonight and then also the 26th. She will be here the next meeting as well, if we want to add it as an item for discussion. Otherwise, she's here tonight and we can most certainly go with discussion tonight. She is prepared and is aware that it was on the agenda, so. It's totally up to you guys.
We're all here.
could,
Yeah.
because there's quite a few items, but they're quick, I think, or a good number of them be quick, so.
Do you want to move it to the end of the agenda?
Yeah, let's do that, and that way, if it pushes out, we got next week or next.
Right.
Yeah,
that
let's
works.
do
I
that.
agree.
It's up to you.
Yeah,
So we already moved Jay out then.
We'll
Yeah.
move,
To the end.
well, no, we can,
We'll talk about it at the end.
And
Right.
So
We
we
can
can
still
do
vote
is
on
we
it.
will
just have it.
accept it tonight on the consent agenda, and then at the end, we will discuss item J in further discussion at that point.
Right.
If we have more questions.
Questions?
yeah, that works. Jason's not here. Okay.
What questions do you have for Jason? Hopefully I'm prepared enough.
Well, on item C, approval of plans and authorized bids for Stevens Turn Lane, I was, well, I guess pleasantly surprised that Three Rivers Park District is now okay with the box culvert, because when we talked about this last fall, didn't they reject that?
Correct.
As an option?
Yes,
Okay, and now they're okay.
they are okay with it, yes. I think the reason for the box culvert and why it wasn't going to work was related to not Three Rivers, but it was related to Elm Creek watershed. And I believe that Elm Creek watershed is okay with it now. Now that we are extending the roadway over, we are required or having to cover up basically that
sure.
portion of the ravine there. And then because of that, the only logical way to do that is to use a box culvert with a roadway over the top of it. Well, because of that, they're allowing us to basically extend that to cover up the area that would normally be a bridge for Three Rivers Park District. So the Rivers Park District was not comfortable with the box culvert, but I don't know if they were the ones driving the comfortability. I believe that was the watershed, Elm Creek watershed.
All right, well,
Either way, it worked out.
right. I guess that's the important
Needed
part.
something
Yeah,
else
so
to
we
add.
approached them after we did our, we were allowed to do our box culvert with the watershed, with the turn lanes. We approached them and said, would you be willing to do this versus your bridge? And they said, yes, we would be willing to do that. So again, I don't believe that was them pushing it, but I think they were a proponent when they said, the watershed said you can't just do that. They were like, okay, well, we'll just go along with that versus.
Is there any way they'll help with the extension at all? or-
Yep, they are paying for their portion of the extension.
Yeah, okay,
Yep,
good.
so that is 100% covered by
Sweet.
Three Rivers Park District. That's not on us. We will front the dollars,
Right.
and then we'll just get reimbursed from Three Rivers Park District. But at 100%, not a certain portion.
Good, yeah, well, I think it's a good outcome. I just was surprised to see that they had kind of,
Yep.
somebody had changed their mind around it. That's, okay, good. Thank you, that's all I had.
Anybody have anything else?
I got one question on the fee schedule thing.
Okay.
See, to me,
The fee
That
schedule-
is off the, that is not on the consent, as a separate item.
Pull that out.
We pulled that
Pull
out.
that out.
Oh, okay, H, yeah, okay, gotcha.
We'll get your question.
Okay. Any other questions about consent? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. Motion carries unanimously. We are on to item G.
Yes.
Chief, is that you?
You guys want?
Yeah, so it's separate. They pulled item G promoting Travis to lieutenant. So you stand for any questions, I would guess, but.
Yeah. So, Mayor, members of council, Councilman Henderson has been promoted to lieutenant at Station 1 because of Matt Hackman's resignation from last week. I'm going to do more of a formal presentation. We're missing a couple of the attributes, otherwise known as his helmet and a new badge. So I'll do that recognition at a future council meeting for him coming up.
Okay. All right, so then I need a motion and a second for item G.
I'll motion.
I'll second.
So, any discussion on that? No discussion. All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed say no.
I abstain.
There will be
You're gonna
40
abstain?
4-0.
Really?
Do it formal. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Item H, fee schedule.
That is also the chief, so I'll let him run his fee schedule changes.
Question.
I just have the one question.
Okay, Scott, go ahead.
Chief, you can go ahead. My question would be directed to you. I mean, I see the burn permit fee is jumping drastically. And I get the reason why, because $25 doesn't cover you driving out to look at the pile there, but of course they're gonna burn, but it's drastically more expensive than anybody in the area. I mean,
Yeah, I noticed
huge
that.
money.
I think
And,
it's
my
similar in
fear is-
cost, if I believe.
My fear is it's because people are just gonna forego the permit and put a match to it anyway.
So a couple things, I was going to bring this up in my update, but this year we've had an abundance of burn permits. And what I'm trying to do, so in conjunction with these, along with the community development's change of use that you approved a few council meetings ago, I believe, or whenever it was. With those applications, along with the burn permits, they kind of tied together a little bit, but there's a significant increase in those requests, and like you said, Councilman Solonic, to get staff to go out there and to review. So we're doing it a little bit differently now, providing a significant amount of information to the firefighters. I have a person, right now I have one of our firefighters, Jason Lasky, who is doing part-time stuff just like Greg Cruz was from an inspection and that type of stuff. So he is going out and taking pictures, giving measurements of where we are from the road so that we have a good understanding of kind of where these burns are. The $25 barely covers, as you indicated, to go out and to do that. So I think we jumped it to $50. And I believe that's similar to Rogers, if I believe. I think in here when we did the comparison, there should be a list of comparisons in here as well.
How long's our permit good for? Sorry, that would be helpful.
1 month.
Yeah, so we have changed that as well. We're working on a different permit process, but we're trying to limit that permit to 30 days so we can keep track of them. If they're not able to get out and get it because maybe we shut it down because of dry conditions, we work with the customer, if you will, to make sure that they can get their burn in. But we just had one yesterday that we were not aware of. A professional burn company came into the community to burn 3 rivers. And so that ended up costing the organization a call out and having 15 or 16 firefighters respond to that event to find out that it was a permanent burn in Champlin, but they didn't know that they should come to Dayton because they weren't exactly sure on where the boundaries were for us. That's just one example. So, yep, we did double that fee. We have, I don't know how many burn permits we've done this year. It's been quite a few. And ideally, I'd like to do it when there's snow. That's the best time for us to do it. Then we don't have any issues of it going someplace else that it shouldn't. Hence, right now, we're not allowing any burn permits because of obvious reasons and how dry it is. But to answer your question, yep, it was doubled, but I believe it's very similar to Rogers in the comparison in here. I don't see it in front of me at the moment.
And what size fire does it have to be? I mean, this is not a campfire in somebody's backyard, right?
No, so a recreational fire by city ordinance is 3 by 3. It has to be 25 feet from the house. They have to have a water source and clean burning material. So we had an individual burning earlier in the week that was burning treated wood, which isn't allowed, but in their backyard, unattended. And so that, a large significant burn, this would be probably 20 by 30 or greater. Leo Dean's got quite a few out there that he's going to come and probably do, but a lot of them, for using Leo as an example, he has to let that stuff green or dry up over a few years before he burns. He's got a few behind the Dahlheimer property off of North Diamond that they've taken down a bunch of trees for the Dahlheimers, and they're going to be burning at some point in there, some pretty significant large piles. But we've tried to get them to minimize those piles, at least break them up into smaller ones so they burn in a timely fashion. We're also only allowing people to burn from sunrise to sunset, so that minimizes the fire department getting called out for a false call. So Scott, hopefully that answers your question. We're trying to be similar to other communities around us, and there's a fair amount of work that goes into somebody going out to make sure that it's safe for them as well as the department.
So does Elm Creek get the $300 fine for not having a
Probably
permit?
not.
Funny you bring that up. I did ask Amy, because I'm curious, and I need to have further conversation with her, but my question to Amy was, is there a reason why the fire department could not require Three Rivers to put a contract in place for us to protect that property, so to speak, because they're not paying any taxes to us, unlike everyone else. So I still need to have a follow-up conversation with Amy on that. That's something, but if the Three Rivers goes up in any capacity, we have a lot of issues going on then with adjacent properties and so forth. So they had a professional company come out, and they called this morning, and they were just confused on who they should have permitted with. So we took care of that this morning.
Yeah, it was I biked through there today, and it was quite a large burn.
Yeah.
They did. The other question the questions that I had were related to the equipment charges. I don't think we've had those before. So, pumper utility, $150 an hour, tanker, $150 an hour, and so on. Those would be new fees, but so are we charging people to respond to fires then, or where does this come into play?
No, so let's assume that we have an MC 306, which is a tanker full of gasoline, dumps somewhere on 94 in the community. Any hazardous materials types calls, we are able to charge back to the responsible party. So hence, without having the proper fees within our fee schedule, we weren't able to do that. So now if we have a hazmat scene at Graco or whatever, and it requires, that's one thing that we would charge back for in that capacity. Probably not necessarily Graco, but more likely the example I gave of the tanker hauling fuel through, often that's what we run into. So then that gives us that opportunity to do that. It's not for homeowners or anything of that nature. It also can come into play too, I haven't had a chance to get to it yet, but we put our mutual aid agreements in. Typically right now we're using Chapter 12 in the state statute, assuming that we have our mutual aid agreements. But if we get into a large commercial property, say in Rogers in some capacity, when we put that mutual aid agreement in place, there's the opportunity for us to maybe recover some of those costs that the city of Dayton would have, even though we're responding as a mutual aid company to Rogers, depending on the significance of the event. So that would be more like a commercial property, not like a single family residence or a large structure there for a couple of days, if you will.
And do they charge us then currently for that mutual aid if they come to assist us?
No. So under the mutual aid agreement, it's no different than from law enforcement or whatever. Everything typically falls under Chapter 12. This just gives the ability, say FEMA comes in and we have a tornado come through. Now we also have those fees in place for reimbursable expenses in that capacity. So we're not charging each other, but there could be some situations where we could recoup some of those costs.
I'm guessing a lot of these costs are covered by the insurance of whatever caused the problem. So like if the tanker truck rolled over, their insurance would end up covering a lot of these costs. It wouldn't be directly to the driver of the truck or something like that.
Right, no, it's their insurance company, the responsible party, the company itself.
Okay.
You good?
Is that it?
Yeah.
Any other questions on H? Need a motion and a second.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second it.
Okay, any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. Motion carries 5-0. And now we are off to open forum. Anybody here for open forum? Anybody online for open forum?
We had somebody a minute ago, and we do not have them anymore, so no.
All right, so that's close open forum. Staff consult council updates. So,
Yeah, good evening, Mayor, members of council. Got a few updates for you tonight. I'm wanting to gauge the council on a work session being proposed by the planning commission for the next meeting, essentially, on the master plan. So the planning commission at their last meeting suggested that they'd like to meet on the next council meeting date before the council meeting and have a joint work session. I would like feedback from the council on what your thoughts are. It's not set in stone by any means, and it's not in the schedule. And if you council see something differently, please let me know now so we can change that or adjust it. I want to make sure that we're meeting not only planning commission's thoughts but also council's. So.
Is this master plan concerned like the north side of Dayton?
So master plan, this is that area on the south
south
side,
side. Okay.
640 acres that is in and around Dayton Parkway extension area.
Okay. All right.
We've been working on the project for roughly 6-ish months, maybe a
Yeah.
little less.
when they proposed that, I did kind of, it'd be nice if we had a little more structure around what would be discussed, because it seemed like it was back to kind of a,
Sounds like the general area would be the land use and what the definitions of land use are and what those land uses mean. Is what I gathered from the planning
well, the
commission.
density discussions, so one of the concerns was that our density numbers aren't correct, and I agree with that. That I think is an easy one to clear up.
That wouldn't take a work session, I don't believe.
Right, I didn't think so. So it just seemed like the rest of the, I don't know, it seemed like it, I guess I'd be okay with a work session if there were some pretty clearer goals than just sitting around the table and
Sure.
going back and forth about large area plan.
Okay.
So, I don't know. That was my thoughts.
So I haven't had a chance to watch them yet. Did they have anything they wanted to get, like, was there a specific goal they wanted to get out of it?
Was specifically they wanted to work on land use, and I believe that meant, you know, what land uses meant, what land uses densities were, where land uses should be, but essentially talking about land uses in and around that master plan, obviously, area. So as we look forward, and this is all work for the 2050 comp plan, and there is no rush to get this done, but there, you know, it's just more or less this is kind of homework we're doing before the 2050 comp plan to make sure we're educated before we go to the next step. So
I would think a road alignment is, that should get nailed down at some point.
Yeah, I guess I had two concerns that I shared with you in an email. One is that we've not seen the presentation. I did watch the planning commission meeting, but there's times when it's hard to follow on because when somebody's talking, you're not seeing what they're pointing at on screen. And so, you know, I feel a little bit at a disadvantage information-wise on that end. And then the other is more selfish. At best, I'll be calling in for the next meeting, and I think it would be impractical to try to call into a work session.
sure.
Could we,
I'm open for suggestions, and again, I'm trying to make sure we take into perspective both council and planning commission, because if the council feels like you guys want to have a look at it, I know you guys haven't really had a time to even discuss it.
No.
It's gone from planning commission to residents, back to planning commission, and there hasn't been no council input on it at all yet.
it would be nice to
So-
get a presentation, and since you're gonna be gone, I guess you could, are you gonna be able to, if we got a presentation next time, would you be able to listen to that, or would you wanna wait?
I can listen, I guess, but, you know, it's got the same limitations as
Yeah.
watching the meeting, is that something's up on the screen.
Yep.
But the camera's on the person who's talking, and so
Yep.
you're not getting the.
So we
connection.
could propose having it on the 9th, sorry, the 9th
Say
of
the
April.
9th is open.
The 9th is open, yep, and we can do a work session with either both planning commission and council, just council, whatever I mean, again, I know that the council's not had any opportunity at all to really view the master plan or have any discussion on it either.
Yeah.
Kinda thinking at least just the council, since this is gonna be, you know, new, if they haven't been watching the planning commission meeting, it's gonna be new.
How long is the presentation? As in, could we do the presentation for like 10 minutes before the work session, or is it like a 20-minute presentation? I'm trying to
No,
figure out.
during the planning commission meeting, the meeting was, the time was roughly an hour, but I believe there's lots of discussion back and forth and not
Yeah.
necessarily just straight discussion
And,
or
yeah.
presentation.
And
So
we've seen this before.
Yes.
So we'd be wasted.
Yes.
So my guess
So-
is we'd have a lot of questions.
yeah, my guess is you would. A presentation, my guess would be somewhere between 10 and 15 minutes, somewhere in there, probably just to go through the information. And then there'd probably be an hour worth of discussion or more with questions. Again, there is no real deadline for this besides, you know, the 2050 comp plan, which we're looking 2026, so.
Right.
But I also don't want to just keep dragging it on and on and on, because then it loses its weight when we just keep dragging it out, so.
Having not watched the meeting, the other piece I'll add is that we still need a meeting on our work session on what does rural feel mean, because we had a
Yep.
fun exercise around that, but I wouldn't say we had a real discussion, in my opinion, around it.
Right.
And I don't think I'm alone on that based upon the nod of head.
With the
So,
follow-ups, yeah.
and to me, I guess I'm impartial which one happens first, but I didn't know if anyone had any thoughts, because I haven't put any thought into it, is what would make more sense to have first. We want to talk about rural feels, so when we go into that master plan, we have that in mind. That, to me, that makes the most sense. So if we're going to have a work session, I feel like we should have the rural field work session first, and then the master plan. But this is me just spitballing based
Yeah,
upon.
I'm just trying to make sure that things
like
keep
the
moving
theory.
forward.
Makes sense,
Basically,
yeah.
we only have so many meetings with work sessions. We can do work sessions on different
Yeah.
nights, but this seems to work the best for all the council members to just make it. And I'm not trying to add any more burdens on any more nights, because I know that everyone's busy. So, and we can have it on the 26th of a rural field discussion. I'm not sure if Vershawn's not going to be able to make it. I don't know if you have any comments, questions, concerns you want to just send in, or
Yeah, if that was the topic, I could summarize my thoughts around it. Yeah.
okay. Let's tentatively plan on that then.
Let's- do you want to send an email out? We can all reply with maybe look at the next 5
Maybe.
meetings and just dates that won't work. We can reply back to Zach so that we can try to find
Yeah.
2 in the next 5
We'll kind
meetings.
of,
that
I'll
will work for
tentatively
everyone.
plan the 26th to have the rural field discussion, then you can provide your comments, questions, concerns, or whatever.
What's the
Councilmember Shaw.
26 look like for agenda?
It'll be pretty heavy with planning items already, so.
Would you rather be here? I would rather be in a work
Yeah.
session personally, so I can imagine, yeah.
Why don't
So
we
why don't we
push
look,
that out?
yeah, why don't we look at April and May, everyone can look at our calendars and
Okay.
get back to at which meetings won't work, and hopefully we can find
Yeah.
two between April and May, one for the rural feel and one for the,
Yeah, there's not any other work sessions or anything else that we need to work on that I'm aware of. We're likely not going to have a council goal session meeting because did that last year, and
Yep.
we have some goals still for this year that we're still working on. So, okay. Thank you very much. Okay, next one I have is, State of the Region, held by Met Council, is next Friday the 22nd at 9 a.m. Is there any interest from any council members to attend that? I will be attending it, so that
Thank
can be
you.
represented. Yep, you're welcome. I'm going to drag John with me as well, so he can enjoy that time. But any other council members that are interested in going?
Sure, yeah, right.
He said he's in.
Scott said he's in, 9 a.m. I'll set you up with Chair Zelli. We're going to go. Okay, and then the last one I have is there has been some growing interest from commissions on having some Dayton apparel. Is there any interest from council on getting some Dayton apparel? So basically a T-shirt or a sweatshirt that would be provided by the city. You do have a budget for those things. They're underneath your supplies budget, and you're able to do that if you'd like. I'm not sure if there's any interest from the council on doing that. There has been some commission interest, so gauging the council.
Didn't we have, a year ago, we had sweaters or light coats or, I don't know.
Yeah, stuff like that. Yeah, I remember that.
Must have been more than a year ago.
Yeah, I think
I
it was
think
probably
it
It must have been.
3 years
Might-
ago, probably.
My
And I
first
think they
term,
were
yeah.
$50.
Yeah, yeah, and we could do that. Like I said, it just doesn't matter. I'm just trying to gauge interest on the
I,
council.
I have
no
interest, but
problem.
I'm fine paying for my own, I don't need tax dollars to pay for my sweater, so I'm okay with that.
I mean, you guys are doing a
guess-
service to the city, which is
Yeah,
Which we
I
get
mean-
paid for, in all reality.
minimal dollars if you bring it down
If
by
you call
hour.
it
But
that.
Yeah, right.
sure, if that's what you want to do.
I have no problem providing some apparel. It's just what, so.
Yep, like I
Something
said,
to some
we're not
degree.
talking about crazy
Yeah.
things. We're just talking about a T-shirt or a sweatshirt or something like that.
If you need a park shirt that's insigniated with parks, that's what you represent. Cool. Like I can let you own that. I have no
Yeah, does
problem doing that.
does the council have any interest in doing that? Sounds like there is some.
I'm not big,
Okay,
I don't.
sounds good. That's all I need. Thank you.
Right.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I have a couple of updates. Wellhead treatment, more of the same. They're putting rebar together and pouring concrete. They are heading to have the site secured to make it safe and secure in the next couple of weeks. They should be pouring the floor slab in 2 weeks' time. So that's kind of the stopping point there. We'll backfill around there, and then it's all sealed up and safe until we get the go-ahead from the study. Parks, the last Park Commission meeting, we had Paul present the revised concepts for the 3 projects for this year. The Ione Gardens project, LC Stevens Phase 3, and the Area 21 Braeburn Trails Sundance Greens. There was a couple of members of the neighbourhood at the meeting had some input, which was constructive and very good. We had to make some decisions on, what was going to be itemized, what was going to be priorities for the parks, particularly park in the area of 21. We did have Paul put some estimates together. They were significantly higher than we've seen in the past, but we did some prioritization on that. I want to get the concepts revised and back and in front of you for the next council meeting so we can get them together and put bids and specs together so we can get out to bid so we can have a chance of getting it constructed this year. Water trails, we did get the funding approved last Friday. It was signed in Washington, and so that is ready for us to use now.
That was the 850?
Sorry?
That was the 850?
Yeah, the 850,000. I was expecting Amy Klobuchar to give you a call, Mayor. Yeah, she was supposed to call you. So we did have a meeting today on the water trail with some of the communities around us, Ramsey, Champlin, Rogers, and Anoka County. All of those people we contacted them when we first started the project, and none of them showed any interest. Now they are really interested in it. Ramsey has got a few areas on the Rum River that they're interested in developing out and maybe tie into our project. City of Otsego have got a project going before the council here pretty soon, so we're going to hook up with those guys. It's around that walking trail by Cowboy Jack's over there. So they're going to be extending something, a canoe kayak launch there. So we're working with those guys. Rogers has a couple of parks that they're looking to do something. They would love to put a boat launch in on a couple of parks on the Crow River. So we started a conversation with those guys. And Champlain, they have some interest in joining up with us as well. So they're all things up in the air at the moment. We're still working with DNR to get an agreement with them for the boat landing in the old village. So that needs to be pulled together. But all in all, it was a very good meeting. The National Park Service got their grant funding of $100,000 as well. So that's earmarked for the Dayton part of the trail. And so that Dayton is the first part of the National Park Service is 72 miles of trail, so they're really pushing to get this going. So that's about all I have.
Thank you.
Chief?
Mayor, members of council, the 26th of March I will not be here. I'll be on vacation, just as information for you. I kind of alluded to this already, but starting to use one of our firefighters, Jason Lasky, who's been trained in inspections in that capacity to kind of pick up where great crews had left off, especially with the change of use of businesses. It gives us the opportunity to go in and make sure that they're meeting the fire code as well as some building code stuff. So just information for you in that capacity, using them from part-time within my budget.
Hey.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. You may have talked about this before, but I just wanted to call out a couple of bills that are floating through the legislature that are pretty significant and could really impact cities. One of them, they kind of refer to it as the missing middle bill. It's a
That's us.
well, it's geared. It would have really significant impact on your zoning authority and your ability to control density. It would require cities of a certain size to accept accessory dwelling units, do lot splits as of right without any real council approval. I mean, it's a pretty significant, in the League of Minnesota Cities, and my personal opinion, it's a pretty significant infringement on the city's local authority. So that's kind of making its way through the legislature, and I'll keep tracking that and kind of keep you up to date on that. And I'm sure you're tracking it in your own involvements and such. And so then there's another one that's going around that'll have some significant changes on the open meeting law when it comes to closing meetings for attorney-client privilege. And that one is still a little, it's not as far along as the housing zoning bill, but it too could have some significant chilling effect on the ability of the council to have, private conversations about litigation that the city may be involved in.
I tried to understand that and didn't see what the ramifications were, but
right now, there's an exception in the open meeting law that allows for a meeting to close for litigation. For an attorney-client privilege conversation. And as right now, there's no requirement that that meeting be audio recorded, like when you close a meeting for other reasons, you have to audio record it and keep the recording for X number of years. So it would require recording of the private conversation, and it also opens up the possibility for people to just sue the city if they think that the meeting was wrongfully
to get at the recording.
Okay. It'll increase the workload on the judiciary because a judge would have to review it privately, which has its own set of troubles. And so it's I'm not sure where it's going, but
It
it's
sounds like a litigation mess, is what you're saying.
Yes,
So,
exactly. And it increases the penalty that a person who violates it,
Yeah, I see
that
that.
you all are each individually responsible for, your personal liability would be increasing. So it's just something that I'm tracking. I'll keep looking at it for you.
Scott?
I got nothing.
Travis?
Yeah, good.
So Dave and I did attend that, and we got all kinds of information on that. None of it good. Did you want to speak on that, or did you write down? I
Well,
see you
just
taking
that-
notes like crazy. But, yeah, we seen all the stuff, and we did talk to Danny a little bit. Our senator wasn't there, but. It
Yeah,
doesn't
I
look
think it
good.
was a good use of time, and I would say the scariest bill that's coming along is the one around the zoning piece, because to my eyes, it kind of guts any authority we have around residential stuff. You can build 6 per acre wherever you feel
It just
like it.
cuts it, yeah.
What does it do for HOAs? I'm curious.
Nothing.
So would it supersede HOAs? So then HOAs will.
There was some language in there that, that would override an HOA from saying, no, you can't build this, or you can't build
Yeah.
accessory dwelling unit. If the HOA says you can't do it, that doesn't matter. This would trump that you can build 6 per acre, and it's not up to us in any way to approve.
Really what it does is,
Control,
Right.
I guess, our growth in that aspect.
right, well, if you're sewered, you can automatically split your lot, and you can have a 6-plex put in, just poof. So your neighbor could tear down their house and put a 6-plex in,
Really?
if there was
Enough physical space for one.
enough physical space for
Yeah.
one.
And
And it
there
also
are,
had something to do with, using commercial property in that same way.
Yes,
So it's like, well, why do we zone anything
Yeah.
then, I guess?
right.
it was not pretty, and last year they had proposed something similar. It died very quickly, but
This one has a little bit
Who's
of
pushing
legs.
for this? Like, are there individuals in the state that are pushing for it, or a group of individuals?
I don't know if it's a group.
Okay.
Have you heard? I haven't heard that.
I
it's a
haven't
group.
heard that.
Well, it wouldn't
Or
surprise
what's the root cause
me.
of this? I guess I'm trying to.
My guess is Housing First would be okay with it. I don't, that's my guess.
The intent is to increase housing
Increase density.
housing units available for people in the middle, who don't have a single-family home, or, to just increase availability of housing to kind of bring costs down for individuals, and I think that's what they say the goal is. And it also, for some reason, takes out public comment and public participation in
That
the
was the other
process.
thing, yeah.
Really?
Yes,
I think the reasoning
Skip
behind that
everything,
was
huh?
Yeah.
pressure,
yeah,
Yeah, I don't like
It's-
that.
citizen pressure.
right, and there are amendments that have been made, so it's evolving, but it's still just something to keep track of.
They're just trying to keep everything under the table. All right, with language, got it. Okay. Don't like it. That's all I'm here. Okay,
No.
thanks, guys.
Yeah, I guess that was primarily what I wanted to bring up as well.
I've got a couple of things. Zach, I asked you a while back if we could have the commission members the commission chairs in Q1 to give us an update on kind of how they ended last year and what their goals are for this year. Have you heard back from any of them yet?
I have only heard back from one,
Okay.
and he is going to try to figure out a day to come in, but I have not heard back from the other 2. And I have sent 2 emails now as a reminder. So.
Okay.
That was something we tried to do last year too, is just every 6 months have an update. I think it's very important to have the
Yeah.
connectivity between the commissions and the council,
Yeah.
and also just to have an idea of what's going on so that the commission and the council can work more closely together. I think it's very important that the residents know that the commissions and the council are working together as well, and not just people on this board or on this, that sit at the dais here. It's very important that the residents know that everyone is working together in the same unity, so.
I agree, and I think it's an opportunity, especially beginning of the year, for people to kind of say, this is what we accomplished last year.
Yep.
These are our goals for this year, because goals are important.
Correct.
And then any update on a special event permit? Since we had the allowance of event centers, we now have this kind of gap, I would say, in our.
Yep, we have chatted internally, both chiefs and Amy and I, we are working on it, trying to figure out what the best process is. I'm gonna let the fire chief, Hendrickson, discuss it more, only because we just discussed it today and he had some comments that he wanted to agree with and discuss, so.
Good evening, Mayor, members of council. It's a little bit of a bigger task than just changing the numbers in our ordinance. Right now, it's at 200. So when you look at the event centers, and I think the most equitable way to tie things back to is looking at the fire code, because then we're not providing favoritism to a specific individual within the community that may have been here for many years versus somebody else that may just have come to the community. Chief Inga and I talked briefly today a little bit. Currently it says 200. If I look at the fire code, assembly is 51 or greater. Obviously there's many properties within the community that could have 51 or greater people at it if they're having an event. So some discussion needs to be further had as maybe if that gets tiered and it triggers certain things from, how do we look at it? Because within our current ordinance, it talks about having the, are they going to sell tickets? Are they going to have a proper potable water along with enough bathrooms and so forth? And I think the biggest reason for the ordinance is for Chief Inga and myself is really that public safety aspect of if you're going to have 200 people and some catastrophic event happens, let's assume that a tornado comes through or severe weather. We have to have the ability to understand what we're going to and what challenges we might encounter upon arrival. So there's a lot of work that needs to be done. We're also tying in the change of use currently is a big discussion as well, because we have current properties within the community that we're working with now for them to do a change of use for an IUP or a CUP as a result of the large assembly ordinance. And so we continue to work there. So we have been working on it. It's going to be a slow process. And then at some point, it might benefit us to have a work session or just a discussion during council to better understand kind of what you're thinking versus kind of what we're thinking.
Yeah, I think it's helpful. I think everything you're saying is on point. There's also a public nuisance piece. When we had the conversation about the event center, there was a couple neighbors that came on. So our neighbors have a wedding there at their house every other weekend, and it's a nuisance to us and blocks the road, blah, 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 blah. So I think the sooner we can get that under some sort of advisement, the better we can properly then be consistent in our messaging around that too.
You bet.
Thank you. So those are the two pieces I have. Thank you.
All right. So we're on to presentations. Hennepin County Commissioner, you're up.
Probably up here. You could run the presentation then.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council, for having me tonight. I know I'm probably the one standing between you and cake.
No,
We've got quite a few yet, so you're good.
Oh, good. So I'm Kevin Anderson. For anybody watching at home, I served the western and northwestern parts of Hennepin County. Have served since 2021. I chair the Public Works Committee. I'm also the vice chair of the Law, Safety, Justice, and the Housing and Redevelopment Authority, as well as our Health and Human Services Committee. Recently, I've also taken on some leadership roles at the state level and the national level. I'm the chair of the Business and Partner Development for the Association of Minnesota Counties. I also serve on the NACO Public Health Subcommittee, and was appointed to the Technology Advisory Council for the NACO, the National Association of Counties. It's been great to be able to bring the Western suburban perspectives and my perspective as an IT professional, or former IT professional, into county work where we can really try to dive into data-driven solutions. I think that's really important to me. This slide is really just a kind of a snapshot or a high-level view of the county's budget. One thing that I want to point out here is obviously Health and Human Services is the largest portion of our budget. It's over 50% of it. We have a big budget, and that takes up a really, really big part of what we do. This budget does not include our CIP, or Capital Improvement Plan, and so that's a whole separate budgeting process and separate from this work. I'm going to talk a bit through the different pieces of our budget and where Dayton fits into it. I think it's helpful to try to bring a local perspective to it. One of the things serving residents is at the core of what we try to do at Hennepin County. We're tasked with being the safety net for individuals, and some of those individuals live in Dayton, and we want to make sure that we're serving them in all of the capacities that we offer services through Hennepin County. As I mentioned, human services is one of our is the biggest part of our budget, and about 19% of Dayton residents receive human services support from Hennepin County. That's fairly typical with communities in the western suburbs. There's some that obviously have less, a few that have more, but that's a fairly normal percentage rate. We see quite typically 1 in 5 people, 1 in 4 people need or are eligible for support for either food assistance, cash assistance, rental assistance, housing assistance. We're tasked with doing all of those things. So that's a big part of what we do. And we try to make sure that we're offering those services in an effective way that's available to anybody who needs them. Public safety is another big issue for us. It's our second largest bucket of money, and last year we did increase our public safety dollars to expand staffing for the sheriff's department so that we could retain and recruit more officers, particularly in the detention area. We also are doing a lot of work. In Dayton, we had 30 referrals to our embedded social worker from Dayton. We also have our Sentence to Serve crew that provides services and is available. Public Works, we have a number of things. This is one of the great areas, and I know that there's going to be some additional conversations happening from our Public Works Department. We received some additional funds for that are going to allow us to do more projects and be more proactive in achieving some of these gap projects, like adding a trail or a sidewalk or doing safety improvements along county roadways that we maybe hadn't been able to do in the past. We passed that through our Complete and Green Streets policy, really geared towards making our roadways safer for pedestrians and bicyclists and people who are using our roadways that may not be driving also. I did also want to just flag for you, I had a conversation with our Assistant County Administrator for Public Works. They're looking at speeding up the process for some projects happening in Dayton, specifically Dayton River Road between North Diamond Lake and Vicksburg. I think that's the right section that was scheduled for reconstruct here in, I think, 27.
Oh, I thought it was next year.
Is it 20?
Mill and overlays next year.
Mill and overlay this year.
Yeah.
Yeah, this year.
This
This
summer.
year.
Yeah, we're looking at trying to speed up a reconstruct of that, but obviously conversations will have to be had and make sure that it's aligning with your work and whatever might need to happen in the area as well. So just be aware that we're looking at finding ways of doing more work more proactively and sooner in Dayton.
What does that mean? Does that mean just fixing the road that's there, actually looking at the road, the intersections, the needs of those intersections, and maybe fixing the intersections to be safer?
The second one.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, a lot of the Complete and Green Streets policy is also going to allow us to look at some of those improvements when we would be looking at doing things that would otherwise be just maintenance. So if we were doing a mill and overlay, our previous, the policy that existed when I took office was when we came in to do maintenance, we looked at the roadway and we said, we are going to maintain this existing roadway.
Yep.
We're not doing anything else to improve it. We're going to get in, we're going to get out, and we're going to extend the life of it. This allows us a tool to say, what else might need to happen? We're going to be here. Changes are happening in the community.
Mm-hmm.
What can we do to improve it while we are doing just standard maintenance for it? And so I'm really hopeful of the impact that it's going to have, particularly on western suburb communities, because there's a lot of changes.
So you guys are looking at resurfacing Dayton Road this year, or mill and overlay this year, right?
But is that just up to Vicksburg though?
That's from like
No,
I think
all the way
there's,
to
I
Champlin.
think there's
All
a bigger section, but there's a
Goes
reconstruct
to
project that.
French Lake Road or something in Champlin all the way to
Why would you do
Brockton.
a mill and overlay and then rebuild it?
Well,
I
that's-
think we're looking at a separate reconstruct for a smaller segment And I think the reconstruct is further out than that. but
Actually,
we're
I think
looking at-
we've got caught in this confusion before, that one is the maintenance budget and you're talking about the
See,
capital budget.
yes, I'm talking capital here, so, yep.
And they don't talk to each other.
No, sometimes they do.
The mayor's point was, I was going to ask that question, but the other question I wanted to ask is, we're looking at putting a path in along Dayton Road on that mill and overlay area. Would the county be willing to partner with us to cover some of those costs, help provide safer ways to get down Dayton Road that would be for walking and biking? Because it's not a safe road to walk on or bike on.
I would love to have that conversation.
Perfect.
Yeah. So,
Perfect.
send me, make sure that I'm copied on any email, or that Public Works is sending those projects to our Public Works staff so that we can evaluate them. Because really, we have cost participation dollars that we go through. I feel like that would be something that would score well.
Yeah.
Earmark on
So-
that, yeah.
The other question I have is,
Three Rivers
in the
Trail.
past, we've been trying, and it might not be you, it might just be your office. I know we've been working with Zach and Senator Hoffman to try to get you out here to have a meeting about our roads, intersections that need help. And we've had a hard time reaching you directly, it seems like. We kind of either don't get an answer or get the runaround. So is there, before you leave, can you make sure Zach has a good contact for you so that way we can stay in closer contact?
Sure.
Perfect.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Absolutely.
The other thing related to what Matt mentioned about the trail, this would be a section that we are planning to build, but it's really part of the West River, Mississippi River Trail that Three Rivers Parks is got on their long-term plan. And so I think some coordination there would be valuable to everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know that we are in conversation with Three Rivers. They're a great partner of ours, and we try to support as much as we can. So, absolutely.
Perfect. Thank you.
Youth supports is also another great thing. This is kind of more of the fun stuff that we get to do. In Dayton, youth and residents of Dayton have been a part or have benefited from about $600,000 since 2009 through our youth sports grant funding. Now, this is not just the city of Dayton, which has received some funding for several parks, but school districts in the area that also serve are included in this number. So I don't want to say it's just Dayton that's getting this, but access to improved facilities and sports equipment grant funds that come through have been a part of all of this. We also have expanded our school-based mental health program, so that's accessible to all students who attend a public school in Hennepin County. So any Dayton residents who are going to a public school have access to a school-based mental health professional. This has been something that was really important to me when I took office. I wanted to make sure that students who were struggling had access to mental health services. And being able to expand that to all public schools was a huge part of what we've been working on. We also are trying to make sure that we're expanding our access to academic support for our families and caregivers, support through mentoring programs and GED programs for any county-involved youth. We also make sure that there's tutoring available. So that's something that is trying to make sure that if a student is connected with county services for whatever reason, if it's child protection or whatnot, that they're receiving the support they need in order to be on a right path to have a bright future. So with that, I would open it up to any questions.
I think you might have covered them. Anybody got any
Hot
questions?
ones, yeah. No, I don't have
Just
any.
around the improvement on Dayton River Road that you were mentioning, and is there a timeline to that, or is there
I'll
still
make
in
sure
discussion?
that our public works staff has that conversation. I don't want to get ahead of my skis on this, but I did want to just highlight that conversation was going to be had.
Yeah, it is roughly, so I do know when it's supposed to start. It's supposed to start middle of July. So after the 4th of July. Is when it's
That's the
supposed to
mill and
begin.
overlay.
The mill and overlay
Yeah.
portion, that's throughout, through this whole city of Dayton, essentially, it's supposed to start in the middle of July.
Sure. I was thinking more about the improvements that Kevin mentioned.
Oh, the reconstruction
From
ones?
Reconstruct,
northbound
yeah.
Lake,
And I'll,
Vicksburg.
yeah, and when I have more details on that, I'll pass it along. So
But your sense is that it may move up from its current
whatever
timing,
the current
which is not on
timeline
the
is.
10-year plan, to something sooner.
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Do you know if is the safety aspect there, North Diamond, like, are they looking at a roundabout?
I'm not sure
I think that's got a
what the
big
solution
red
is.
on the map.
Yeah. I don't recall
Okay.
what the solution is that they're looking at.
So I'm going to ask a question. I'm a pretty direct person, so I'll ask a pretty direct question. When we get asked a lot of citizens, and if you spend time on social media, you'll see it too, that we should leave Hennepin County. And as the representative that we have at Hennepin County,
Yeah.
I'd like to give you an opportunity to say why people should stay in Hennepin County versus be trying to leave Hennepin County. Whether I'm on,
Well-
don't know what side of the fence I'm on. I just figured I'd give you an opportunity to address it
Yeah.
since you're here.
Well, so I hope, honestly, this presentation gives some sense of what Hennepin County is doing and showing up for residents in Dayton. Making sure that they know that we're here to serve residents. Our job is as the public safety net. That's primarily what counties are tasked with across Minnesota. Our job is to take care of residents who are most in need. And we consistently lead with that in our housing support strategies, our human services strategies. We are having some really great success right now in making sure that people who are experiencing the hardest times in their lives, making sure that they're supported and put on a stable path. I'm going to speak, I am going to get ahead of myself a little bit. We are really, really close to being able to declare functional zero for veterans homelessness. That's something that Hennepin County has made a priority. It doesn't mean that we have solved homelessness, but it means that we've created a system that works. It means that when we identify somebody who's a veteran who is homeless, that we're able to provide them and put them in, provide them services and get them connected with stable housing that they can stay in for their future. And we can do that within 90 days. That's a really big accomplishment. We also are a Yellow Ribbon County, making sure that we're supporting veterans and learning lessons from that so that we can also then take those lessons and apply them to anybody else who is struggling. That is ultimately what we are tasked with doing, is learn, do better, and we're going to continue to do that. And those lessons learned are available to every resident in Dayton and everybody in Hennepin. So, thank you.
All right, well, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Kevin.
All right, on to item K.
Mayor and members of City Council, we have Amy Lucht, who is the representative for Care Resource Connection. Care Resource Connection has reached out to the fire department, has been working with the fire department, and Amy Lucht is here to share some information on her company that she works for, and I'll hand it off the floor to her. So I'll hand these down.
Thank you. Good evening, council members. And Mayor, I just wanted to let you know, we work real closely with, I'm going to dovetail a little bit off of Kevin's presentation, so a lot of them will kind of mirror a little bit in regards to a community risk reduction program. So again, I'm Amy Look. I'm the CEO of Care Resource Connection. We work with fire departments and the state fire marshal to help fire departments have a community risk reduction program. And then over time, it turns into a community health alliance where we partner with Hennepin County. So like Kevin said, Hennepin County has this big safety net of everyone. We are the boots on the ground with the fire department and the public safety. And then together, we meet in the middle and there's this great synergy. So I'll tell you a little bit more about as we go through this presentation. So I'm sure as your new chief here has looked over the data, typically EMS responds to, 70%, if not more, of their fire to medical calls. You're not getting a lot of fires that anymore like they used to. It's more medical driven, which is why when he came here, it was so important to get that EMT designation. So they use these tools. They need tools to connect to those who are needing the help. So much like what Kevin said in his presentation was, they have, 19% of some of the folks that need the help. We are the ones that come in that fill that gap, right? Because we know folks fall through the cracks. They may not meet income guidelines. They may make too much. They may have whatever the case may be. We're that bat line that kind of comes in, and when the fire department identifies these folks that need some help while they're on scene, they're able to send something over. So I'm so grateful for your community that you have a fire department. I live in Otsego, I do not. And, sad for us. But the fire department is a fabric of the community. They have a pulse of the community. They are the most trusted brand. And I don't just say this because my husband is on your fire department. I say this because I truly believe it. I've made a career out of working with patients in very difficult positions. And it has always been those first responders that are right there and that are able to get the information. And they'll trust the firefighter with anything. Next to clergy, they are the second most trusted resource that you have at your disposal for families to give their information to. So I'm not going to read through all this. You have the presentation at your leisure. I'm sure you're going to have more questions. I just want to get the highlights. So what we do, and like I said, you have public health and community health, and both are needed in order to fill these gaps in your community. And we work in tandem. You have the embedded social workers, which is amazing. And the embedded social workers are here basically to get the mental health referrals and those referrals that need to be had. And I work with all different fire departments all across the state. I'm actually going to North Dakota because we're bringing it that whole state is absorbing this as we speak. So it's one of those things where if we have, it's using the right resource at the right time. We don't want to keep throwing, and hammering in a square peg into a round hole. It doesn't work. Right now where you guys are, I used to live in Maple Grove, you're a baby Maple Grove, quite frankly, and it's going to start growing and it's going to start coming, and we need to start looking at a community risk reduction to address these gaps. So in this picture, I am proud to say, as we all learned during COVID, I'm on the State Emergency Operations Center with the City of St. Louis Park, and we ended up calling the governor and saying, hey, our community are giving trash bags. We have the 10 nursing homes. We have all these seniors. What are we going to do? And they all called me and said, Amy, come and help. And I worked with Hennepin County Public Health and Kevin's team, and thank goodness that we have this relationship with Hennepin Health, that they came in and we gave residents shots. We did shot clinics. I sent them to Methodist Hospital so they could learn how to give injections with the COVID shots. And we went to every single one and made sure everybody was good. While their families stood outside with signs, we went in. So again, community needs. I've been watching this community for a while. Obviously I live in Otsego, so very close to what's going on in this region. But there is that high utilization of 911 callers. Some, like Kevin can attest to, 911 is their access to health care. Why we are called Care Resource Connection is these are patients. These are your community members. They need to be connected back to a care team. Unfortunately, County Public Health is not the care team. Their care teams are their provider. And when we work together and we have the fire department coming in and saying, hey, I have a referral, and we're able to work through this process, they're able to go and connect back with their doctor. And you'll know when I'm in your town, I will tell you right now, because the providers know that I work closely with North Memorial, and Dr. Tangy is a good friend of mine. I helped him build the community paramedic program. So we work together. So when the ambulance comes in, right, and we got the fire department there, and if the fire department is saying, hey, Amy, we were at Zach's house and, Zach fell and his wife is really struggling and he doesn't want to go to the hospital. They don't want to sell their house. They're scared. It's okay. It's okay. Because I'll come the next day and I'll talk to Zach and I'll talk to his family. and we'll get them connected with the doctor, and we'll bring in resources, and I'll connect with Kevin's team. And while I'm bringing resources to them, be it home care, the doctor, whatever, Kevin's team has, because they're at the county, they got to deal with your finances, they got to deal with all that good stuff. It can take about a month to go through all these things and different community programs. I'm working with the care team, Kevin's team is working with the resources, and together we become an alliance. So again, our whole mission is to improve, maximize, provide, and create sustainable solutions. Your taxpayers are, and there's a typo here, and I'm so sorry, I'm so embarrassed. Their taxpayers are saving, taxpaying dollars living in communities, not on, but living in communities with a community risk reduction program. Because at the end of the day, the taxpayer dollars are paying for all these public safety services, and what better way, because we all know, the way we live our lives every day is health care. When we go to the health systems, it's our sick care. They're treating our illnesses. We live our life daily, and that's health care. But we need to be able to bring all these things together and create resilient communities. So again, can't stress this enough, the most trusted resource, that 911 responders coming out and they're doing what they need to do. The system is designed with Care Resource where we are addressing the social determinants of health. Social care is what we are all going to have to start looking at. For the first time this year, we have more 65 and older than we do children that are enrolled in school, kindergarten through high school. And the elder ages are going to just continue to, grow. Who's going to care for these folks? It's going to be left on our public safety. And we have to start building community and systems in place and start having these conversations. Like Kevin's talking about the veterans, talking about all different types of things. We know here, I know in Otsego, I moved to Otsego because our child went to Kaleidoscope. Caitlin has autism. She's 24 now, she lives with us, but we were in the Anoka School District. That didn't work for her. I didn't like people calling my child sped ed. I had a problem with that. I wanted her to go to a school that saw her for her things. And she's my assistant at Care Resource Connection. That girl can whip an Excel sheet like no one's business. But no one gave her the opportunity, right? So we did. And it's that care coordinator, right? So we have the RMS system, which I call it's a report monitoring system, where we're able to work with dispatch because we're on 911. We can work with that and get the information over, and we're able to assign a care coordinator to that person, and that person stays with them for 120 days. When you're enrolled in a community risk reduction program, not only do we go there within the first 48 hours to check in with you if you didn't go anywhere, we check in 30 days. Hey, how did Kevin's team, are you guys connected? Did you get your rent stuff? Did you get your food? Did you get these things? Because as much as we all want to say it's the county, it's this, it's that, it's actually that individual's responsibility to understand how to care for themselves, and they just need the tools to know how to do it. And then we stay with them again, like I said, 120 days. We measure this, so as the chief is coming in and you're going to say, what about that community risk reduction program? Amy was here and she said we're going to have data. You'll see the data, the types of calls, the types of resources, the types of things that are missing in the community, and there's a gap here. So Kevin and team and my team can work together and bring more resources in. So it's really all about looking at where you are, doing that needs assessment, and seeing what gaps that you have in these cities and that the community needs to connect with. So I'm going to brag a little bit about our Community Health Alliance in action because this is a favorite part of my presentation. So sharing the work that we do with communities. I can't wait to put your fire department in these little circles. There I am at the top up in West Fargo having conversations. We do podcasts, so we literally provide the roadmap for the communities. It's an entire year to build this coalition, but we have the support here with the firefighters. They know me, they've seen the work that we've done, they're watching the other fire departments around them, and they're like, hey, we want this in our community. And so we maximize on those lessons learned. You'll see on the bottom, we worked with women's shelter, and the police department worked with us, and we got a grant for car seats, and we made sure that every mom that was reunited with their children had a car seat. And we had the folks that were actually able to put them in. We partnered with Hennepin County Public Health on that, thank you, Kevin. And so, up at the top there, that's a little on the other end there, but that's Fridley. Like I said, we're in different counties, but they wanted to have something like this. And so we brought in, we sponsored a firefighter to get her community health care worker certificate because she wanted to go into working with social work. And so Kevin's team and our team worked together, and we ended up sending her to St. Kate's, and we sponsored her. And so we work with those students. So on the bottom where you see a podcast, I'll selfishly plug our podcast at the end, but these are St. Kate's students. These are first generation students. These are students that are going to school for public health that want to get a job in Hennepin County or whatever county in public health. And then we also have community health care workers. We bring these students in. We have the college contracts, and they do their internships with me. And I bring them to the fire department, and I show them how to work in community health and partner with public health. And so here we are again, addressing those vulnerable populations. We also do community classes. And that little girl on the bottom in the blue shirt, that's little Miss Caitlin. Yes, she actually helps us teach these classes. So that's us. We went in. All those moms did not have any resources during COVID time. These women were fleeing human trafficking, coming out of incarceration, homelessness, domestic violence, you name it, and they were afraid. And I want you to think about this now. So they were afraid because when Hennepin County came in, it said the big H, and they thought they were going to take their kids away. I come in, and you see me up there, so today I'm Care Resource Amy. But I'm in your community, I'll be Dayton Fire representing. And so on my patch up there is St. Louis Park Fire, and those women let us in. They let us in. They trusted us with their needs. They all took notes because none of them had a doctor. We had 7-month pregnant women that had no idea where to go. They just came out of a really bad situation. And so I bring the doctors to them. We have over 800 doctors in our network. And so we're able to work with everyone because we don't say it's North or Align or this. We're agnostic. Care Resource has everybody come in together because it's about your community. So these women, we had Wellness Wednesdays, we had vaccine clinics, you name it. They got ready for their GEDs. They were able to go, and those that didn't have, those that had a record, we worked with Hennepin County and the law groups in Hennepin County to help figure out how they could get gainful employment, right? So it's all about those types of things. And you don't have them yet, but I'm telling you, when they come here, working with nursing homes and assisted living facilities. They're beautiful buildings, and they are designed to have a continuum of care. You may start in independent living, go to assisted living, memory care, long-term care. The hope is so you don't have to move, go through all that stuff. But like I said, during the pandemic, we really worked with these folks, and then working with their discharge plans, bringing in Hennepin County, because believe it or not, we found during COVID, and we were recognized nationally by working with the public health and community health, that when we came together, we realized that even though the big H and it's Hennepin County, they got all these great things, there's this government oversight and fear attached to it. And so when I come into a nursing home and I say, hey, we're getting a lot of 911 calls here. Can we talk about that? Here's a 911 call report. I'm a bit concerned because of what we're hearing from our fire departments. And then they'll say, oh, yep, we can talk about all this great stuff, Amy. And then I'll say, well, you have resources at your fingertips. Why aren't you bringing in Hennepin County? Oh, no. So I come in and I'm that bridge. And during COVID, we brought Hennepin County into St. Louis Park, and we literally retaught everybody how to use county resources. Those slides are from your team, Kevin. Probably look familiar. And we brought in resources because we didn't want a barrier to keep these residents safe. And the staff needs to have the training. And so it makes, if we already know what we're walking into, we just meet people where they are. And so we work with the high schools, and if they want to, we always want to start with youth. Or the chief can tell you about how important recruitment and retention is. So I can bring in a CNA class to your high school. And we teach those students, and then all those nursing homes we have in the city, we partner with them. And then they can get their internship hours there, and then they can job shadow. And then the whole purpose is, let's start rebuilding and rethinking about how we're going to build these resilient communities. So here we are again, and that's the chief with his thumbs up. Anytime I get a chance to put my chiefs in PPE and take a fun picture, Chief Hendricks, if we do this, that'll be you in one of those circles. But there we are, right? Look at all those kids. And because the cool part is I'm a nonprofit that creates these programs, I partner with United Way, I partner with all types of organizations. You were just talking about the roadway. If the city commits to being an age-friendly city, I partner with AERP, and they give grants to cities to have an age-friendly city for walking ways. There's so many things, but for this one, our providers created literally a clinic. You can see behind them. Those are beds. Those are mannequins. We got everything donated, scrubs and all. I brought my nurse in there, and everything's all set to go. And these students, the first 150 students, we were able to run through the program, and now they're working in our community in St. Louis Park. So we filled that need. And this is a United Way program. They came in and they gave the school $50,000 to get this program up and running. But once we identify the need, I can write the program, and that's the importance of all the work that we do. So, in a nutshell, that's what we do. We bring these community risk reduction efforts out into the community, and then all the folks that come together up in the corner, we have a big open house. So at St. Louis Park, the chief gives me all 3 bays, and I fill them up with all of my partners in Hennepin County, and we're in there, and when they come to the fire department open house, they're able to connect and see. Because a lot of times people don't know what they don't know, so they don't know what to ask for, and they might be scared, but the fire department is a safe space. And so if we bring these folks into here, they're able to go and see and say, oh, yeah. Even if you say, my neighbor or my friend, you know you're in a safe place where you can get some resources. And they're trusted and they're vetted. And they come from the county and they come from here. And that, I think, is another thing, because people don't know who to trust when you get older. You know, your world becomes very small, and that trust is huge. And so we really want to make sure that whatever we put out into the community, the residents trust, and we know that it's a vetted source. And we've done 43 podcasts to date. I invite you, please, to listen. If you want to know what we do and the doctors that we bring and the resources that we bring, we have them all. You can listen to them wherever you find your podcasts. But if you have any additional questions, you can always feel free to reach out to me. I'll leave all my information out here. And on that brochure I just gave you, I will tell you that within the first 90 days of us coming into your city, those repeat calls you won't have anymore. Those persons who hoard, I also sit on the Minnesota Hoarding Task Force. We work with those folks. And we bring in resources in. And because we can partner with the county and community-based resources, we're able to fill those gaps, which allows the firefighters to practice and on their skills that they need. And they're not churning and burning for Amy, who's calling every so many days because she wants to do something. She doesn't want to go to the hospital or, you know, whatever. Oh, I just went back, sorry. But like I said, look at that. If you have any questions, feel free to give me a call. You have a great chief now here. He's got an amazing vision for your city, and I'm just proud to be part of it in any small way I can.
Thank you.
Thank you, Amy.
All right.
Mr. Mayor, before we move to the next item, can I request a 5-minute recess, please?
Oh, yeah.
Motion for one? Do we need a motion for one?
Second for your motion.
Thank you.
No, we can just
Thank you.
go 5 minutes. Item L.
Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, Mayor, members of council. Tonight, the chief, fire chief, and I are going to go through the pro forma on the fire training facility. I know that we had discussed this, I don't know, several months ago or so. It's kind of went to the back burner. Now we're back in the front burner again, trying to get this thing moving forward. What we really need tonight is we really need some direction on what we want to do as a city. What piece of property we want to use. If we don't want to use the tax forfeiture property, then we need to use a different piece of property in town. It is basically a need, and it is, you know, something that we need to really focus on, of how do we train our firefighters, where are we training them, how can we save money, how can we look for another way of resources and revenue sources to offset taxes. City staff is trying to figure out what the best way to do that is, and so we really need direction on where and how to proceed with our fire training facility. Like I said, we had one conversation a few months ago, 6 months ago, I don't even know how long it was, and the council basically asked for more information. We put together a more informative pro forma, it felt like, of how to fund this sort of operation and how to look at it from a perspective of bond dollars versus grant dollars versus this property versus that property. I did provide this information in the packet, so this isn't anything new, but do want to make sure that everyone knows that, you know, for evaluation of commercial property, when we're looking at the tax forfeiture thing and that tax forfeiture property, if we don't use it for a training facility, it is going to be something of a commercial base. Something in the $4.5 million range is likely what you're going to see out of that property. That is likely like an Olive Garden or a Red Lobster or a smaller store of maybe a strip mall or something is typically in that $4.5 million range for the tax valuation. And the city taxes collected is only the city taxes collected, not all of their taxes that they're paying. We're not going to see a $10 million facility that's like a Home Depot. And a Home Depot will not fit on the tax forfeiture property. It just won't happen unless they buy the next property over, which then we're not talking about the tax forfeiture property. Now we're talking about two other properties, which is going to be significantly more expensive. So, but yeah, we just need to know how to proceed, basically, and then the chief and I could bring back something to the council of what we want to do moving forward, so when we get the direction. I did provide these in the packet, but I do want to go through them just quickly so everyone has an idea of what they show and what they mean. I tried to put as many notes in there as possible so that it wasn't confusing, but I'm sure it was. So the top left is the same on every, or it's breaking down in the same way on every single one of the pro formas. We did 3 of them, 2 of them on the tax forfeiture property, 1 with a grant and 1 without a grant. So the chief and I have worked with Senator Hoffman at the state legislature to put together a bill that he's going to be chief authoring to put in front of the Senate in order to push forward a facility of a $2.5 million ask to build the facility, which is where the dollars of the facility came from. The $2.5 million ask is what we are asking for in order to build the facility. That's not just the facility itself. That's also the water hookups. That's also the pavement. That's also a conference center. That's also, I don't know of all the things I'm hitting on, but anything above and beyond, basically, that we needed to get the facility up and running, so that it's not just we're building a facility and we can't even get to it. So. And then we do have dollars allocated already that we've allocated years ago in Fund 410, which is $750,000. So that is where that dollars are coming from. If we have a grant to cover the entire thing, there's no reason to put those dollars towards it. We could put those dollars towards something else, and we don't have to put it towards this facility. If we don't have a grant, so this is the tax forfeiture property without a grant, as you can see, grant dollars received are 0. We would likely take out a $1.75 million bond. That does not mean it has to be a physical bond. We can do an interfund loan at the same rate internally within our funds in order to fund it. We don't have to physically go out for a grant, but I had to put in some sort of scenario to show how we would fund this situation. And then I put the years in there. I don't want to put an actual physical year because I don't know when this is going to start, but I do want to, use a 7-year timeline. And obviously, we have a 15-year bond on the facility, but doesn't mean I'm not going to put 15 years in there because you're going to get lost after year 7. So the top half of that pro forma really shows the rental rates, how much we would charge out to other communities, the hours of use. The chief and I went through and said we don't want to be over conservative, but we also want to be under conservative on hours of use. I believe 450 is 9 hours a week. Essentially, a community would come in or another municipality would come in, and typically they're a 3-hour venture. By the time you get set up, by the time you get doing any training and then tear down and anything else that they want to do, it's typically a 3-hour venture. And so it's going to be 3 communities a week at a minimum. Some communities want to do it during the day, some want to do it in the evening, some want to do it on the weekends, so it'll really depend on when they want to do it, but we wanted to use a conservative number, not knowing how much we're going to have. Sure, we might have a great effort, it might be 1,000 hours in the first year. I think that's only a bonus for the Pro-Forma and not a negative. We wanted to be conservative and not knowing how much is going to be used. Maplewood facility and Able facility were not great at providing information of how many hours of actual usage they use. And the reason being is because they have member communities that are in there. So they don't count member community hours as hours of use. They only count them as that's just being used. Whereas we would look at everything being hours of use unless we are using it ourselves, because the facility will be run and operated by us. There are pros and cons to both of those. As you have member cities, you don't have to share as many costs, but then you also have to set up a JPA, which means you now have another board to go through or another set of people you have to get approvals for before you can do anything to the facility. If you want to do any changes, if you want to do any renovations, if you want to move something, do something, you have to get both or 3 or however many communities you bring into it. Then you also have to get that JPA board, and it just takes more time and it's more resources typically. And then also you don't get to reap the reward when there are a lot of hours being used, and we can use it as an offset to taxes. So that's the top half. We put in there reduced expenses. So this was something that came up at the last council meeting, was how much are we saving by having the facility in town versus having to pay our firefighters to drive all the way to Maplewood. Not only paying them sometimes mileage, but also time that they have to be in the car, and how often are they doing those things? How much does it cost us to have training here at this site versus having it down there, where a site where we can be more utilized and more real life? Typically we have those kind of expenses. So I put in a 3% inflationary change over year, but started off, it's roughly about $18,500 is roughly what we pay just to have training done, and whether that's at a different facility, whether that's having somebody come in, whether that's having us drive somewhere else, mileage, whatever else. And then again, I use that 3% inflationary change. I don't know what to use. It could be the same flat over years, but I got to put some sort of change, especially in today's market when we have inflation that's 3% over a month.
So how many current facilities are there that do this?
There are 2 current facilities that will be the same as ours, and then there's the one in Edina, which everyone knows about, but I don't believe that's the same type of facility, but I'll have to
So it's
refer to the chief.
Maplewood and who else?
Maplewood and Able, which is Apple Valley, Burnsville, Lakeville, Egan.
Okay. And they wouldn't,
And they don't count, they're happy to provide information, but they don't count hours of use with their members because they don't get charged for them.
Yeah,
So they don't
yeah.
charge out for them, so they're like, well,
Right.
why would I track the hours of use? Because I don't care how many hours you use it, it doesn't matter to me.
so Maplewood has how many members?
Oh boy, I don't remember.
More than a handful.
More than I think it's just known as the Maplewood facility, but I believe they have 5 or 10 members. I mean, it's quite a few.
One of their biggest members is Century College, using the facility on a regular basis.
Yeah. So they don't count any of the hours. So when I looked at because they sent me the information that they had, which I provided last time, it showed such little hours of use. And I was like, there's no way it's being used that little when we're booking it on a Sunday and we have all these firefighters there on a Sunday. There's no way they're only using it 30 hours a month. There's just no way. It's not possible. Well, it's because their members are actually using up likely most of that time, and they don't count that towards hours because it doesn't bring any additional revenue in there.
And it's essentially, other than their membership cost, it's free for them, so they
Correct.
don't use it.
Yeah, so they don't even count
I
the
guess
hours that they
that's one
use.
of my concerns, is how you know that 250 or that, that rate, that 450 is a good number.
Chief, I know part of what Hoffman wanted was for you to reach out to other communities and get either buy-in, hopefully with a letter saying, yep, we use the facility if it was there. Were you able to get a hold of any other chiefs in the area, and if so, how many, and did they show any interest, how many hours they want to use it?
So we just asked for a letter of support from surrounding communities, and as you can imagine, we're talking about state dollars, it's competitive. So they may have it opposing, not to the training facility, but maybe their public works or whatever the case may be. I did get a couple, Brooklyn Center put us in their information to the state. City of Plymouth, Rogers is going to do a resolution. So we have plenty of people out there that are interested in using the facility outside of us. It's really that supply and demand. We have to train once a year, regardless if Councilman Solonic's perspective last time, if it's in a trailer or something, we have to have live fire training. The other challenge that we have, and this just happened last Thursday, we were afforded the opportunity to train. We have the Lawndale House. Hopefully that we'll be able to burn that down here come June. But we were given another property at 11321 Elm Creek Road to utilize. Unfortunately, I don't think the neighbors really appreciated us training at 9 at night. We lit it up pretty well with our lights and whatnot, and the property owner said, hey, it looks like the neighbors got a good show, and said we could continue to use the property, but if there's some way we could minimize that disruption to the other people around them. So the need for us is huge, as well as surrounding communities, because the closest facility for us to do any live burns is 36 miles away, which is Maplewood. Currently, as Zach said, there is another facility in Eden Prairie which has a bunch of members to that organization or that particular facility. The issue with that facility is often it's not operational because it's either natural gas fed or propane fed, and we run into a lot of issues with that, obviously in the wintertime. And my intent here is not to have a facility such as that. It's just going to be a Class A burn, so clean burning pallets and straw and so forth. So it's as Zach and I sat down to try to figure out what this would look like and what the benefits would be. Conversations with other chiefs, they would love to come here because it's a lot shorter distance for them. The location, at least as it sits, if you chose to use the tax forfeiture property, is easy on, easy off, so that's a big help there as well. So just a little feedback, I guess, in trying to figure out that hourly use. There's just nothing up this way.
Where's the next facility? Is there one in central Minnesota or northern Minnesota? Is it just the two in the cities?
I don't really know what even St. Cloud uses, actually, as an example. There is another one that's run by a relief association, I believe, in Stacy, Minnesota. The Relief Association, I believe, asked the city council to help purchase the land, and they over time paid it back, and they used that as kind of another resource. But that is a much smaller one-room facility that I've trained in with. Century College has used them as well.
Hey.
So how many hours do they book?
I didn't ask. I did not request or I have anything from them, so I don't. I can ask and get their numbers, but I don't. I did not reach out to them.
Century is one of their because they have a couple programs. I know there are 5 different academies that are currently using Century College as their trainers, if you will, and then also they have their regular in-house programs for Fire 1, Fire 2, a daytime and an evening class as well. So that's why last year we were lucky enough to book this year in advance for using their facility next Saturday. But there's an overwhelming need for one of these facilities within this area.
So I think this, I don't know if this got a, we keep hearing that, and I know you'd like to use a facility like this, but why is it that there's no other facilities? I mean,
Why is it that Rogers, Champlin, Elk River, Anoka, Ramsey,
Well, even if
nobody
there's-
else has built one of these things?
Even if there's
But
no-
yet Dayton needs one. I don't get it.
I mean, if we're talking about all the way up to Stacy, you'd think St. Cloud would, I'm confused.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it has to do with availability of land. That's probably the biggest factor. Granted, you move into Rogers, move that way a little bit more. There's more land available. Why another facility hasn't been built? I mean, St. Paul, for instance, St. Paul's a big, heavy user of the Maplewood facility because their facility no longer exists. Minneapolis still has one, but again, theirs is down a lot of the time. At the end of the day, if I take everything out of outside people coming to use this facility, if we don't build this facility, we're going to build something like this into the new fire station. I need a place to train. We have no place to train in the community. I have no water. I need water. It's just what it is. I mean, I have 28 firefighters, 3 years of tenure, 0 fire experience. And that's nothing to their fault. The only one thing that I miss about Brooklyn Center is the often that they have fires. And that's obviously not,
Sure.
we don't want the community to burn down.
I
but
get it.
the reality is that it's very difficult to try to train somebody, and it ends up being on-the-job training, which is detrimental
Yeah.
to us.
Yep, I understand that. I'm just, it's just, from here to Stacy then, what are those departments doing?
They're using these other facilities. Or if they're lucky enough, like on occasion, we've had the opportunity to get some houses to burn down. Now granted, there's a lot of onus on the homeowner because, for instance, the property on Lawndale has an overabundance of asbestos.
Oh,
And so trying to work with the homeowner to cover those costs for us to burn in the facility is fairly significant. So it really kind of depends. Unfortunately, the one that we just trained in the other night, that is too close in proximity to the other residential homes for us to burn down, if you will. So I think often a lot of those are trying to use houses that have been given to them. The DNR is the one that I have to go to get permitting from. They're pretty specific as it relates to the type of training that we can do and where we can do it. You know, Marty had asked if we could burn the old boathouse down. We have to take a look at asbestos, if there's asbestos in it. And the issue that we have there is too close proximity to one of the light poles, which I don't want to damage, obviously, city property when we're trying to take care of something else. So it's an ongoing need. Some communities, maybe, I know Plymouth, for instance, hence a letter of support from them, is our Connex boxes like we had. They worked for a short period of time, and as you've seen, these are going to be going away here shortly, but they are kind of an eyesore to the community. So this facility would be something that is not an eyesore. The specific location that we're looking at the moment fits very well. I don't think everyone wants, and I know there's a difference of opinion from what I've heard from council, is looking for something else in that. And I think if you look at other communities, the fire station is at the beginning. Look at Victoria's fire station when you come in on 212. It's a pretty big facility that comes in there. It's that welcoming thing, no different than what Amy had talked about as far as firefighter and that trusted brand. So the need for it is huge. Somehow we need to come up with something, whatever that looks like, in order to build something within the community.
so,
Yeah, to answer your question, I don't know why another community hasn't done this yet either. I don't know the answer.
so,
We can ask all the communities around us and say, why haven't you done this yet, and see what they'd say, but there could be a multitude of reasons. I mean, it could be personnel issues, it could be they're dealing with other things, it could be, no, we have this facility over here, it could be, no, we're utilizing this trailer that we bring in once a year and do it that way because we don't want to travel. There's a lot of different reasons why they might only do it certain times, but the
me,
fire
the big-
department is going more and more to full-time. I mean, it's hard to get volunteer people. Unfortunately, it's just my time as a person is more valuable at home with my family than it is with me fighting a fire. And unfortunately, that's just the reality that we have to deal with today.
so
We've been grateful for all the new firefighters. They've been fantastic, and all the time that they spend. I don't know how they do it, and they're better men than I am, and better women. So.
Well, I think the biggest reason that you're not having one of these is it costs $18,500 to train, or $2.5 million to build one of these things.
Correct.
That's the biggest reason.
Yep.
It's
Yeah.
cheaper to spend $18,500.
Yep.
So the 450 was just based on,
So that was roughly,
Asking.
we just said, okay, if there's at least 3 communities in our area that will use it once a week, whether that's to be a training facility to try, I know that something about ropes courses and it's not just going to be a burn facility where it's going to be on fire every time with the trainings.
Yeah.
It could be something else where they're using a ladder and trying to train their people on using a
Technical
ladder,
rescue
or
stuff.
doing a rope
Yep.
thing, or having somebody jump from a building and utilizing those kind of resources as well. It's not just going to be a one-dimensional system, but I mean, 3 communities once a week. I mean, maybe even Century College wants to partner and wants to do another thing. I don't know. And there's a growing need for fire, and we figured at least 3 could do it. And then we just increased it by 1 hour every single week. I think it was like 1 or 2 hours every single week on every year. Again, if we use 1,000 and say, yeah, it's going to be great, everyone's going to use this thing, it's going to be 1,000, and then it goes back only 450, you're going to look at me and go, what in the heck did you get us into?
That's a little bit of my concern with the 450.
And sure,
So-
sure. And like I said, I could be way off. I'm not a predictor of the future, and if I told you it's going to be 900 the first year, you're going to go, yeah, right. And then if it happens, you're going to go, well, you're a predictor of the future. But I don't know. I don't know either. So
I'm more
you're
inclined to
looking
keep
for-
spending the 18.5 and doing it that way. That's me. I mean,
Sure.
it makes, to me, it makes 0 sense to spend $2.5 million when you're only spending 18.5 a year to get the training.
Sure.
And if you got to drive, you got to drive. That's just the way it is.
Well,
I mean,
I think
it's simple math in my mind.
Well, it's not all about the dollars, I'll be honest, Scott. The reality
It
is
is about the
that-
dollar. Everything's about dollars.
Well, it depends on your philosophy.
Yeah,
And my
right.
philosophy is making sure that my firefighters go home the same way that they came.
I understand that.
So the reality is the training and the dollars that go with it. The $18,000, yes, you can look at that number all day long, but the opportunity to look at it and recoup some of those dollars over time is pretty significant in this scenario. The other thing is, when we build Station 3, you can spend it now or you can spend it later, but some of these aspects of this particular facility are going to be built into it.
That doesn't mean that's going to happen. You might think it's going to happen today, but that doesn't mean it's going to happen.
How
It'll
do you
happen
set-
sooner than later.
Yeah, I was gonna say then in your philosophy, how do you set departments up for success?
I think, and I'm going to ask a question. I know when you guys went to Day on the Hill, Hoffman wasn't there to ask. Like, I think he was in D.C. I think he was actually there for the water trail thing.
Yep.
So I was going to ask if you had, not to think about he wasn't there, but if he had any input while you were there, if you heard anything about it while you were there from anybody else.
Not from any other source.
Okay.
They are
And he
right
wasn't
now, they're-
around.
the SRO bill's using up a lot of their time.
It is, yeah.
And, yeah. this
Yeah, and
zoning thing's-
obviously our goal is to not just spend money. I mean, that's not what we're sitting up here trying to do.
No,
Say,
I-
okay, we want to just spend 1.75 million because that's going to be the best thing for Dayton. Sure, it might be, but we're not going to just go, yeah, let's just spend it, let's do it. I mean, our idea is to spend it with grant dollars. We're trying to use somebody else's money
Well,
to
and
do
if
it.
it
And
would
if we can
support
do that, that's
itself
the
and you
idea.
would, you showed a positive cash flow, I think. I think
That's a different deal. If
I'd
it
be
shows a
fine with
positive cash flow.
And this one does. So I'll go through the scenarios just so you know. Okay, so the revenues are on top, the expenses are on the bottom,
Yep.
and those expenses are related to how much usage is. So when wages go up with how much usage it is, and that's the idea is that we'd have a training officer or somebody there that would be helping that, and then their salary would go towards this versus having come out of our general fund or our tax dollars. The first year it's going to lose money, and that's the reason is because it has debt. I mean, we lose 59 grand, sure, and that's because it's 450 hours. If we have 900 hours, now we're making $75,000 a year, and that offsets taxes and goes towards streets, parks, you name it,
Yep.
whatever you want it to be. And after 7 years in a $1.75 million debt situation, we are profiting 183 grand. Now, that doesn't look like a lot, but if you do year 8, you're at another 100 grand. So now you're at $283,000. If you do the same scenario with just the commercial property valuations and say, okay, it's going to be, and I'll go back to the slide, 30,000. I'll use 30,000. It's an easier number to do. It's 30,000 times by 7. You're at 210 grand. So really, the difference is $0 after 7 years, and then after year 8, we're making money every year. And then once the debt falls off, that's another $175,000 we get to basically take and move it towards streets, parks, operations, whatever you want to use it for. This is intended to be a cash flowing item that would offset any sort of tax levy or tax burden that the fire department has. That's the idea for this facility. I'm not sure why other communities aren't looking at it. I don't know that answer.
I think even if we could break even, I think there are other positive aspects. It's just, I want to make sure we break even.
Yep,
Or
I don't
more.
disagree.
And B, I have a big problem with the location, but that's. we
Sure.
can
Yeah.
end it
So
there.
I'll go through it's the same on every single one of them, and I did them exactly the same so that it was easy to follow between the
And you're
situations. So-
looking for feedback.
Yes, correct. I'm looking for feedback. And what we need feedback for is, okay, how do we proceed? As in, are we using the tax forfeiture property, which would be double utilized as not only the fire training facility, but also the fire station? Or are we looking at another property and we want to do something else with the tax forfeiture? Because from what I've gathered is we want to do something with tax forfeiture property, from what I've gathered from council, and we as staff want to make sure we have all of the information before we make a decision, because an educated decision is worth 1,000 times an uneducated decision. And so the tax forfeiture property, if we go to slide 2 and we say, okay, this thing's going to be 100% covered by grant, and we're not going to spend a nickel out of our dollars, we make $1.4 million in 7 years. There's not a property that you can put on that piece of property that would make $1.4 million over 7 years. And there's no way you're bidding a Home Depot or anything else on there. You'd have to be over a $20 million valuation, and you're talking another Cubes building, and that's just not going to happen.
Yeah, but what if the property sells for $3 or $4 million?
Sure.
You gotta factor that in there too.
Sure. Yep.
You guys aren't factoring everything.
Yep.
in
So
there.
that's what I did the other property. I say, okay, how much are we taking in? If we say we're going to go to another property, we're going to sell the tax forfeiture property, we have to buy it still.
Yep.
So we still have to purchase that property, and we'll use the number that the county gave us, because I don't have any other numbers to give you. 1.5 million is what the county wants for that tax forfeiture property. That's what they're giving us. We are doing a current valuation and property appraisal on it that we're doing currently, and I just haven't got the results back to tell you what our property appraiser says, which was part of the memo that Amy sent out, is that we should get an appraisal by ourselves, which we're doing already. But okay, let's say we went to another property, and we're going to do the same situation as number 1. It's not going to be a grant, but we're going to have to buy a piece of property, and we're guessing, and based on our conversations, it's $1 million to buy a piece of property these days for a 5-acre or 6-acre portion of property. Is about $1 million. That's what everybody wants for their property. In order for us to break even on that situation, we would have to make $1 million on the tax forfeiture property. I don't know, based on my conversations with developers, any developer that's willing to buy that. I think it's 6 acres, maybe 6.5 acres after like
land,
the
yeah.
stormwater's taken out and the roadway's taken out. That's going to be willing to pay $2.5 million for that piece of property. I don't know of another one, and I've asked several of them how much they would pay for it, and their answer was roughly $1.5 to $2 million, roughly. And that doesn't mean that, maybe they'll come back and say, hey, I'll give you 2.5 because I want it right now and I need it. But from everything I've gathered, it's not worth. If we make any money, we're not making enough to offset the $1 million. And again, maybe I'm way off, and we can make $2 million. Sure, Scott. I don't know that answer, because again, I'm not a future predictor, but I just don't. I don't see it from my conversations that I've had with developers. If we had more properties next to it, say it's a bigger property, now we're talking 10 or 11 acres, they can do a lot more with that, and they're willing to pay exponentially more because they can do so much more with that. For example, like a Skinnell, who builds business parks. They take lots of properties, combine them together, and put in business parks like they're doing in Champlin, Brooklyn Park, right at 109th or something like that. That's right. They're the whole developer of that property where that farm is, and they've put in all those business parks in there, all of those gigantic buildings. That's all Skinnell. I mean, that's what they do. They purchase a bunch of properties and then they put in a big business park. But they got to have 20 acres or more. They're looking at buying all Odessa and the 2 properties and tax forfeiture in order to do anything of that nature. And I'm not sure that's what we want either. I don't know if we want a bunch of buildings like that at the beginning and our gateway of Dayton, but that's in your hands, not mine. So in order to offset it, we'd have to offset the $1 million cost for the land acquisition. So I ran this scenario as in this is the worst case scenario. We don't have a grant, we still need the facility, and we want to put it in. We have $2.75 million we have to take out for a bond. Again, we can do an interfund loan or something like that. But after 7 years, we're down $513,000, and that doesn't sit well with me in the position that I'm at, because I don't want to have to subsidize $513,000 over 7 years to say, yeah, it's worth it for us. Because even at the end, with 1,000 hours of usage, we're only making $4,000.
The other thing is I wouldn't be in favor of levying for this either.
Correct. Yeah, and I don't disagree. I mean, I wouldn't be in favor of it either. I mean, that's not my goal, is to spend money and just say, okay, well, we lost $513,000. Good luck. That's not my position to sit here. And I'm assuming it's not the Chiefs either. Otherwise, we'd have something on your docket months ago. But that's not going to happen. The other one is a grant. So let's say we went and got a $1 million piece of property, but we did get the grant still. We're still going to make money, $1.2 million, but we're still going to have a small principal, and we're still going to spend the $750,000 we have allocated for land purchase years ago. I don't remember how many years ago it was. 3 years ago, I think, 2-3 years ago. We're still going to spend that $750,000. The two scenarios ago with the tax forfeiture, that 750 could go to something else.
When did that 750 go from 500?
Well, we saved 500, and then we've slowly saved a little bit every single year. And then when we came back to a request for the council to say, hey, can we spend more than $500,000 because we can't get a piece of property?
That's right.
The council said, yep, we
Up to,
go ahead
yep,
up
yep.
to 750,
Right,
which is
yeah,
why
up
I'm using
to.
the 750 number. We levied 500, and then we've had a lot of individual purchases that have been slightly less than budget.
Yep.
So every single time you do that, you gain 25 grand here, 50 grand here, and then that adds up to 750. So we have roughly $750,000 saved up for buying the land. Now that land, if we spend $750 or $1 million on a piece of property for just a training facility, now we have to still buy the fire station land or somehow get that from a developer or something. I don't know if that's.
How much acreage do you need for this?
For this particular,
Yeah.
just the training facility,
Yeah,
I would say we could probably do about 3 acres.
okay. How much, and this is just flying off the head,
Mhm.
how much ground is right behind Public Works right now? That is in soybean field or cornfield?
There's no sewer
That's
water
gotta be
there. It's got no
3 or 4
water.
acres.
It's got no water
There's
access.
to answer your question, there's probably 6.5 to 7 acres.
Oh.
However, the problem is that it does not have sewer or water.
Yeah, but you can
So,
put it in, you can get a well, can't you?
Wells
Does a well
not gonna
give
be
you
able
enough
to-
water?
Won't give enough water, no.
No, it's kind of the same, Councilman Swan, the same issue that we have in Old Town right now with just having 1,000 gallons of water. I mean, well wouldn't supply enough.
Yeah, and otherwise, if that was the answer, we could be using all. I mean, we'd use all. The possibilities are endless if we don't have to worry about water. But unfortunately, we have to worry about the water source, and that's what we need. And that limits us to where we can go at it, which is why city staff needs direction from council. What do we do? Because there's only so many spots that city sewer and water are at, and we know we need the facility, and whether that's the fire station, whether that's a training facility, or both. I mean, obviously, we're not looking at doing it tomorrow,
Yeah.
but we need to have direction because things take time to do. As Matt comments on me almost every week, if not every month, that things move super slow in government, and I go, "Yep, they do." So.
I'm arguing not slow enough.
Depends on which way you look at it.
Right. How much water does, say, a training session consume?
It's a great question, because we'll probably flow 1,500 gallons a minute.
Right.
So if we're flowing 1,500 gallons a minute for, I don't know,
3 hours?
yeah, 3
Maybe
hours.
the average training.
But you're
Yeah.
not, I mean,
Yeah, you're not probably not flowing the whole time, but I
right,
mean,
so you don't really know, but,
No, I mean, we're flowing a lot. I mean, we've had many challenges, and Marty loves it when we use the
Surprising
water
with
system.
water usage, yeah.
Because the community complains to Marty. Marty unfortunately gets to take those calls on our behalf when they're trying to do their laundry and it's brown. Because we're
Oh.
really stirring it up
yeah.
because of our
This is the volume
use.
change.
Yeah.
So I'm guessing that it's gonna be under 250,000 gallons, it looks like. So what's a storage device? I guess we don't have Jason here, but it'd be nice to know what
I
the
mean, a
cost
storage
would be.
device, so what we're looking at for the historic village, which we put into the legislature, was a $2 million ask, and that has a 250,000 gallon tank on it.
Tower.
For the water tower.
Right,
That's for the water tower. Yep.
Yeah, that's 2 million.
It's $2 million.
Quarter.
For 250,000 gallons of capacity
Yeah.
in a water tower, is about $2 million. And if you go to that 500 to a million, now you're talking $4.5 to $5 million is roughly what the
Well,
cost is.
yeah,
We've had, the only reason I know this is because we had this conversation with Jason of like, how much does it cost to do this stuff so that we know when we're putting in for grants to try to use other monies in order to fund things in this city. We have a lot of needs, and unfortunately, it's trying not to use the dollars here, use someone else's dollars or our other dollars that we spend on taxes. We go to the state and try to get some of those back would be really good. We've done some of it, which has been great, and I'm a big proponent of using those dollars if we can. So.
Do you have one more slide?
I do not. Nope. So this is just the 4 scenarios that you saw in your packet. I just wanted to make sure I understood, or have them up here so that everyone can see them.
Flip forward.
Go ahead. I'll go.
So I have a couple of comments
Yeah.
around this. First of all, I appreciate the work you did Chief and Zach, on the spreadsheets. I like seeing things this way. I think you know that about me anyway by now, but it's helpful for me to kind of paint the picture of what are we talking about. So I do appreciate that. I know that was extra work for you guys, but I think it's needed on this kind of thing. I certainly see the need for it, and I think it's okay for us to think bigger than our community in terms of providing a facility that others would use. We take advantage of other communities in the same way, and I think that's okay as for us to do, as long as it doesn't break the bank. And that said, I think that it looks to me, and if my math is wrong, then correct me, but it looks to me like we need about 10 other fire departments to participate in this thing for use, to get anywhere near those 1,000 hours that you've got, down the road a bit, that actually makes this look like it flows positively, cash flows. And so if it's, I don't know what I'm buying here from the Microsoft store, but
Yeah, I see.
sorry about that. So I think that's part of the reality, and for me, I would like to see, a pretty strong level of commitment from something like that number of other departments. We're not going to build this, and this isn't the field of dreams kind of thing. We'll just hope that they come. I think that, I think we could get a stronger commitment from other departments to make us feel better about what this looks like in terms of overall use by other communities. That would help me. I think the grant is critical in this because it's a big number, and because it's going to be used by more than just Dayton. It seems to me like that's a fair ask from the state to say that they should be supporting us on this, because it's more than a community asset. It's an area asset, and so I think we should push pretty hard on that. And however I can help with that, I'm happy to do. The last thing I was going to say, we go around about the location, and I don't love that spot. I understand more so now after reading Amy's letter that doing these tax forfeit properties for other purposes is a big mess. Yep. And not that we can't do it, but it's complicated. This would be a pretty straightforward use. I don't love the location, I'll just say that, but I have a different vision for that area than it's materializing as, so I may have to give up on that here before very long. But I don't think that kills it in my mind. I think that even if we have to purchase property and we get the grant, I think this is still could be a viable thing, and again, hinging for me on that commitment from other communities to use this facility.
Sure. I can think of at least 5 or 6 that we've talked about just internally of who would use it, and they would say, "Oh yeah, for sure we'd use it." And I can think of 5 or 6, and I'm sure as soon as you get it built, then people start asking, "Can I use it? Can I use it?" And I have no idea anything west of us of what they do. I have no clue. I mean, there's got to be something out there, but I don't know. And this might be a great facility for like a St. Cloud or something, because it's right on 94 and it's close and it's simple. But I don't know what they do right now. I mean, maybe they have their own facility. I have no clue.
What did Maple Grove say? I mean, they're right there near it, right? And they have a lot of firehouses, so they got to have a need.
Yeah, no, so a little history on Maple Grove. Chief Bush and Heidi, city administrator, they looked at trying to add to the gun range that was built with the help of Hennepin County, I believe, in the state as well. Unfortunately, that didn't pan out, if you will, so there's definitely, obviously, a need.
So Maple Grove wanted to build this, but they couldn't get the funding from the state. It went to the police, it sounds like, instead of fire, which is
exactly.
beneficial to the police, so I like that too.
Yeah, and that's kind of the same scenario. The Hero Center that was built down in Inver Grove Heights, or Cottage Grove, I think. That facility was more law enforcement centric, and that was kind of an afterthought for fire. So really, it's really a training room and a cement pad where they can do car extrication. So we've, even long ago when I worked at Homeland Security and Emergency Management, there was a big push at the state level at that time to get training facilities for fire departments. around the state. The one that comes to mind is Marshall, Minnesota. They have a training facility down there. One of the chemical assessment teams uses it on a regular basis. But the push there, which I could understand, was, well, we can only fund so many of these, if you will, which, again, we understand. But with the lack of the ability to do live fire training, which is very insignificant, as we've experienced here, which is great for the community, it doesn't fare well for training for our firefighters. So really trying to find those and try to work their part-time jobs or their full-time jobs in their family life and try to meld it into here when you do training on Sundays doesn't often work either. So there's a pretty high demand for it, as Zach said. I think I've asked for other letters. I mean, we can get them for support. Councilman Fashant, as you indicated, I think the bigger thing is that a state level being they're competitive for other dollars that they're trying to get for their community, it's a little bit of a kind of a give and take, I think, in that capacity. That when they're trying to pursue for a community center, water, whatever.
You think their concern would be if they get us a letter that we'll get granted and they won't? Is that kind of?
That's a little bit of,
yeah, I
kind
get
of
it.
what I've heard.
But that doesn't seem like a big grant that might get in their way.
Yeah, no, it's small compared to a lot of what they're asking.
What was Maple Grove's problem? Why didn't they?
They were going to expand at the current facility, at their Witcher facilities, their public works facility there. The dollars, when they tried to put it into play, it was, again, trying to help council understand kind of the need and whatnot, and then there wasn't a big factor from getting dollars from the state at that facility. So we tried to, collectively, we've talked about it at the North Joint Operations Committee that we have a part of Hennepin County Chiefs Association to help build that facility, but it kind of fell on deaf ears. Now retired Chief Charlie Smith from Spring Lake Park, Blaine Mounds View had gone to the state legislature to try to gain dollars as well on that side of the river, if you will, and it kind of fell on deaf ears as well. It's something that's been tried to be pursued and just hasn't been successful. And it's a need. We're getting less and less fires, which is great.
But Maple Grove, I guess I'm surprised they would have stopped it over money if there's money to be made by this facility.
It depends how they presented it. I mean, this was, you can ask Zach. I approached Zach the day before I started with this, in reality, because when you look at it from my perspective, it's something that can help our community, and then looking big picture, we have the opportunity to recoup some of those dollars. Now, there is another opportunity that we're trying to, as Zach said earlier, stay away from, that joint powers agreement, because then it gets very messy. I'm sure Amy can attest to that. You're trying to get all city attorneys to agree on a specific contract. It doesn't work out real well.
So I guess that's at least my concern. And if it doesn't work out well, our city is the one to take the hit. So,
So I appreciate you putting these together per our request. I think it's helpful. I agree with Councilman Fashant on this, that it'd be good to have a good number of other cities saying they'll support us. Even if it doesn't go to the state legislature, if it comes to us saying, yep, we'd support it, we'd use it on a regular basis, I think that'd be helpful for us.
Seems like it would.
I think that this is from not only talking to our chief, but talking to other chiefs, it's a need for the area from what I hear, but I've only heard from a couple of them. So I think it'd be helpful to hear from more of them. I think we have a responsibility to be mindful of the costs as part of making this decision. We can't be losing money year over year on this. It's not good for the city to do that. It's not the right thing to do with people's tax dollars. But I think we've got a couple ways to get to success here, depending on the grants and what comes through. So that's exciting for me. As far as the location, after reading the memo that we got, I am too worried about how we buy the property and then flip it for $1 million based the next day, based on what I said, how long to sit on it. It's part of the conversation later tonight. But I think that's something we have to take into account. I also agree that the gateway to Dayton is still a little underwhelming from what I've expected, but I think when we decided to build $1 million cubes, $1 million square foot cubes facility, then that kind of set the pace for what the
entry to Dayton was gonna be in some extent. And so, so yeah, I think we need to have some shored up support from other communities, and then I think we can maybe make a better decision to go from there on, if not here, where, but I think there's a path to success based on what I'm seeing here.
Sure. Yeah, so we just need direction of, okay, it sounds like we have some direction, which is get some more letters of support
I
and
think that
whatever
would-
else. That would help.
A lot more support. yeah.
Yep,
I mean,
that's fine. And because that's good direction.
'Cause
But we need to
that's-
know on this property as well. And so, because and maybe we just sit on it for a while, but I don't want to keep sitting on it because we keep kicking the can down the road. It makes the property harder to get. If we're not going to use tax forfeiture property, we need to figure out another property that's going to work, because every time we go by, we get more developers coming in going, I want to buy this property and I want to buy that property and I want to do this one. And then we only have so much area, and we're focusing on the south area because that's where Maple Grove water is, and we have a lot of capacity down there. And not saying we don't have any up here, and we won't, but for now, we are more of a focus is down there, and that's more of our commercial industrial area anyways. I don't know anybody who wants to have including myself, who wants to have a burn facility next to their house. I mean, that just doesn't sound like an enjoyable
and
thing, and if I have lights all the time.
I've heard from commercial entities too that say they don't want to buy them. So,
Yeah.
I mean, and you're going to be in the heart of it. I guess this is my concern with that spot. You're driving west on 94, go up our brand new bridge through $1.5 million worth of landscaping. And you come to this. So that's my concern is
It's not going to be okay. It'll look similar to the Semstone building. I mean,
Yeah.
if you're looking at it from a perspective of what's around it.
Well, eventually our goal is to have Firehouse 3 there, right? So there will
Correct.
eventually, I'm not
Yes.
saying right now, at some point in time, be a very nice, attractive
Yes.
looking firehouse right there too.
Correct.
As a welcoming presence when you enter.
Yeah, if we use tax forfeiture property, it would be the ideal place to put both of them on there because they can both fit, and then it would avoid us having to spend extra dollars on the same property.
I think wherever we go, it would make sense to put both of them.
I don't disagree with that either. I'm just saying,
Together.
you know, if you're thinking long term,
So
I just
I
there's
just want to
a
make sure.
pretty
that-
ruby to put in front of the, ugly front of coal or whatever you want to look at the other building.
Well,
you know?
I guess.
Yeah, so we need direction as staff to figure out what we want to do, and if the vote is we don't want to use the tax forfeiture property, that's fine. But then we need to move forward with finding another property in town that will work for this facility. Because if the grant gets awarded, we want to be able to start moving on the process. If the grant doesn't get awarded, then obviously that hinders us a lot of, another portion where it's, now I don't think we're going to move forward with buying another piece of property for losing $513,000 over it in 7 years.
We need a piece of property anyways for Firehouse 3. But I'm
You
saying
got
we build
it.
it right now. We need to have the property because the land's not going to get any cheaper.
You got it.
So we either have to decide this is the place, or we have
got
to
it.
try to find a place because we've been sitting on this for a while now, and
Yep.
we
And
haven't been able
that's
to
what-
make any.
Then that's what
achievements
staff needs direction for.
Right.
And if that direction is wait until we get back from the letters of support, that's fine. But property isn't coming any quicker and any easier, and unfortunately, God ain't making any more land, so we don't have any more of that to use up either.
So I guess I'll ask the question I was going to ask Amy later, which is if we bought this property, we had appraised, we bought it for the 1.5. The appraisal comes in and says it's worth $2.5 million, let's just say, and we turn around and we sold it to a commercial developer for $2.5 million. How long do we have to wait before we have to worry about the county or somebody come back after us for the extra $1 million? In your
You don't.
professional opinion,
You don't.
They're not going to come back after the city for the for the extra, for the profit. The county won't do that. What they would probably do is hesitate to sell the property in the first place.
if they knew we were going to flip it
if
right.
they
So how
knew-
long-
If they knew,
How
yeah.
long do we have to own it before the county would hesitate to sell it to us in the first place?
That I
You-
can't answer. I mean, that would be the county's decision.
But in your professional opinion, what would be a reasonable amount of time for someone to sit on the property? I mean, you'd be the one, if you still employed you, to go to court on our behalf if we were to go, they were to come after us. So my question then becomes is,
She wouldn't.
Well, they're saying you
negotiate
can buy it for 1.5, so if you buy it for 1.5, it's yours to do whatever you want with.
but these meetings are recorded, so if we buy with the intent to flip it, then the intent is to flip it.
Absolutely. But if you're buying it for 1.5, that's their number that they'll sell it to you for, to do whatever you want.
They will negotiate. That's the point.
Now, the appraisal that we're working on, I mean, we've been working on that for about 6 months now.
Nope, it's only been about. You have to give the appraiser one job at a time, otherwise none of the job gets done, and then it takes us 6 months to get it done.
This is that one of them government things again.
Correct, yeah. So it's only been about 3 weeks. soon after 3 weeks. He was working on the previous Spanier property before that.
We talked about this in EDA, it's 5-6 months ago.
Yep.
Okay.
I'm certainly okay with not moving on that property to buy it, if that's your question. But as far as deciding that this is where we're gonna put it, I'm not there.
Sure.
I'm not there either.
I
I mean, and to me, we don't need to rush through it until we get the appraisal, till we find out where the grant is,
Sure.
till we get some commitment from other communities. I mean, you guys have already got this thing built, and we don't know any of the answers yet.
Well, we don't have it built. We're trying to just acquire the land. We want to know
I
where it's going to
understand
go
that.
because
Yeah.
if it's not going to go on the tax forfeiture property, which is fine, we need to find some other place where it's going to go. Whether that's the training facility, whether that's the fire station, or it's both. The land is not getting any easier to find, which is what
How long do we
we're
find out if we get
concerned.
the grant?
Probably May or June. It's not a long way.
Okay,
though.
it's not like 9 months.
No. I mean,
When
we'll know by the end of the legislature, which is I think June something.
When I say built, in your mind, staff wants this thing, and it's
Oh,
gonna
sure.
happen.
Sure.
So far, you haven't shown us that it, first off, cash flows, that there's gonna be community support, or that we got grant money to get it.
Yeah, and that's what all these scenarios
So,
were here.
to me,
Okay,
you
I have
get
no
all
clue.
of that done before you spin your wheels and waste a lot of time.
Yeah,
Because-
we are
because
not.
this is, how do I word this? This is more of a want than a need, because we currently have training. We just don't like the training we have.
So I would say
I
that
would
we
disagree
need to
with
find
that,
land
yeah.
for Firehouse 3, regardless of whether we do the training facility or not. We need to find, because the land's not gonna get any cheaper. So again, I'll say, if not here, then where? So I think, are we able, while we're getting this land appraised and went through everything else, to pull together some other ideal locations for both Firehouse 3 and the training facility, so we have options if we decide we don't wanna do it here, we know what that looks like and approximately what it's gonna cost to do it, so we have.
Sure.
I just don't wanna wait. If we can dual path this, then that's fine, but we need to make a decision. I mean, we know we need to have the land for Firehouse 3 for a while now.
Yep.
We need to find land for it.
Yep.
Regardless, and so.
Yeah, staff needs direction. I
Yep.
mean, that's,
So
we
I would
really
say-
need like direction of what are we doing?
I'm not saying it has to be in this spot, but we
Yep.
need to have options for spots too.
Yep.
And right now, we only have one option. I think in my mind, that's part of the, from what I hear from others is, that's the problem. We don't want to hear, but we don't know where, but we don't know what the other options are. So I think having other options might be helpful for the dais to make a better decision on, maybe we do want to do it, but we don't want to do it in this location, you want to do it, I'm out on the road or
Right.
something like that,
But-
right?
but-
Is that fair?
Yeah,
Okay.
but we've known that we needed this land for a while. We just haven't
Yes.
put a realtor on it, or we haven't put somebody on it.
My point is, let's do it. Let's stop waiting. Let's put somebody on it and find some other options, if not this one.
Sure. And that's the direction we need. And that's the answer. That's fine. I mean, like I said, staff
Like
is
I
not
said,
trying to say it's built
we
or it's
may
going to go
end
here,
up-
it's going to go there. We just need to know direction.
Yeah. I'm not
I
against
think
this spot.
that's
Yeah.
possible. I don't like
I guess.
my vision of it being there, but it may be that as we learn more and talk through that
Maybe
property
that
more, it might be that
we're
that's
stuck
such a
with that
pain in the
spot.
neck to change the use that we can't,
Sure.
we can't make the thing work the way we think we want to.
Sure.
And then that this becomes, the fallback. As I said earlier, this is not a deal breaker to me where it is at this point, because I think the big questions are around the grant and the commitment from the other communities.
Certainly.
And it does, also, I want to say that ultimately, this thing, for me, does not have to have a positive cash flow. It just can't be huge negative.
Yeah.
I mean, we don't expect the police department to be a revenue producer. We don't expect the public works to produce revenue. No, we don't expect our parks to produce revenue. Those are costs and a benefit to the community. So I'm okay with some number near zero. It doesn't have to be.
Or even above -18.
Right. Well, right. See where we can get to, but that's, it doesn't have to make $250,000 a year to me to be viable.
Sure.
If it's cost neutral, that would be great.
Yeah,
That's all
yeah.
it needs to do.
And cover the risk.
Yeah, so like I said, of the four options I provided you, essentially don't do option C, which is lose $513,000 over 7 years, which again, I'm not advertising and saying that we're trying to do that, but
Yeah.
of all the options, option C is, that's not going to happen, which is no grant and spend $1 million on a piece of property. And we're losing $513,000, which doesn't make any sense, which I don't disagree.
Well, some of
But-
that's tempered too, because, if we end up with a third station down there, land and everything, that's going to effectively lose money, right? We're going to
Yep.
park money into it. And
Yep.
Yep.
And so I think as long as this thing doesn't have a lot of risk associated with it, and it's getting above the 18,000 or whatever, it's at least fairly neutral.
Sure.
It probably makes sense.
I think, we have more direction than we had before, which is what we were looking for tonight. I mean, again, we weren't looking for, you have to make an action, but we just need some direction of what we need to do, so. Unless you need anything more, Chief?
No, that's exactly what we're looking for, just
Yep.
kind of direction of which way we wanted to go.
Yep.
All right.
Thank you.
On to item,
More direction. Try to scurry this along as fast as I can
Thanks,
here.
guys.
Future park dollars discussion. This was brought up to me from Councilmember Solonic, and I think it's a great conversation to have. And the reason why is because we have been growing exponentially over the past several years, and we've spent little time on where those dollars are spent. Besides, this gets approved, and we're moving forward basically until the amenities and projects are completed. We only have one neighborhood park remaining to plan out after planning out 4 or 5 for the past 3 years, which is the expansion of Brayburn Trails. I know that there's currently ones, I'm talking about everything 2025 and beyond for anything future-wise, following the 2024 year. So this gives a good opportunity for us as staff and council to get together and say, how do you want to spend the future parks dollars? And I don't mean this year's dollars. I mean this year's dollars we're going to talk about as well, but future dollars and where we're putting those in. Are we putting them in neighborhood parks? Are we putting them in premier parks? Or are we putting them in community parks? Community parks, I'm talking more like the baseball fields and the Andrews kind of park. Premier parks, I'm referring to like LC Stevens, where it's a destination park or a neighborhood park. And then we just need, we want good direction from council, which gives us better direction for staff of when we're working the long-term plan. Where do we want to spend dollars, where don't we? And how are those dollars coming in? Current staff and current council has not connected on these priorities ever, that I'm aware of. At least in the 3 years that I've been here, we've never talked about where are we spending monies on parks and where are we not, and how are they done. Besides, here's a plan, please approve it, and then we'll spend the money, and then that's it. And that's, I think it's important conversation to have, and I think we need to have more of these conversations of where council and where staff sit, and not because staff has a better agenda than council, but if staff is running one process and the council's thinking the other one, now we're on a different page, and that doesn't work, and then that causes animosity between both sides when we don't know what the other side needs. And so what we're looking for tonight, or what I'm looking for tonight, is council direction. There's been there was a request from Councilmember Solonic today. What have we spent on past parks? So I'm going to go through past parks, current spend on parks that we're planning for this year, and future parks. So past parks, River Hills Park, we spent $776,000. Sundance Woods, which is River Hills Park is our largest park that has like a sledding hill and zip line and big playground and stuff. And Marty can probably give you every single resource on there, pickleball courts and stuff, and a half basketball court. Sundance Woods is much smaller, just as a half basketball court, a playground, and a baseball field. LC Stevens Phase 1 was $385,000. That was mostly just cleanup work, basically, kind of get the site to be somewhat viable and be able to use. LC Stevens Phase 2 was much more expansive, gave us that tar, gave us the kind of actually defined the park of where it was at and the parking and stuff like that. Not crazy, but it still defined the park. That was $709,000. Hayden Hills, $724,000. Again, we had the dollars that we had budgeted for. We did not include any engineering or anything related to planning or anything else related to that. So those dollars go in here when we have to do engineering and stuff. Those go in here as well. And Donnie Udell's just to do the revamp was $255,000.
I think something to point out too, because Marty brought up earlier, is that when the Parks Commission was looking at, I'm going to get it wrong, the Brayburn Trails Quad Corner Park there,
Yep.
Brayburn Trails 1 and 2, it's budgeted for like $500,000, I think. Is this on a slide? I'm getting ahead of you. Yeah, it's budgeted for like $500,000, and that basically gets them a park. Like it gets them like playground, and that's it. That doesn't include a basketball court or a sand volleyball court or a baseball field or a soccer. Nothing. It just gets them literally the bare bones requirement, and that's going to serve 4 neighborhoods. I think the conversation we're going to have today is good, but something we need to think about is how do we appropriately budget? Because I think we significantly under budgeted for Brayburn Trails. I know it says the current estimate is $762, but the estimate we saw from Paul,
726.
oh, sorry, the estimate we saw from Paul was like, I can pull it out, it was like $1.1 million with contingency.
Yeah, so I did not include contingency in the dollars, and
Okay.
then I also allocated out what part can be trails dollars, and what also can part be water dollars for like irrigation and stuff.
Yep.
And then we also, Marty and I went through this, and the only reason I have these numbers is because Marty and I went through this of what can we cut out and what can we utilize from other resources and other parks.
Okay.
And so that's the dollars that 726 grand is basically gets you that half basketball court. It gets you the double pickleball court. And you got, council hasn't seen this yet. Parks Commission saw this.
Yeah.
And so Marty and I, we wanted to go through this, and we went through it yesterday to figure out what the actual dollars are for the estimate, so that when you guys get it in 2 weeks, you're going to know, okay, here's what we can do, and here's what we can't do, and here's what the estimates are. So again, past park dollars. I'm happy to send this PowerPoint out to council after the meeting. I put this together today, otherwise I would have sent it out to you earlier. Stevens Farm Phase 3 is 500 grand. That's budgeted for this year. Spend is 248. There are some dollars coming from trails related to the bridge, which is a significant portion of that. If you add the bridge in there, it's like right at 500 grand. So we would look to spend trail dollars, because trail dollars come from the same developers as well. And also we are not spending some dollars that we had planned this year for trails to be utilized in another spot. We had planned to use trails from Donnie Galloway Park in Champlin up to Balsam Lane. And that's not going to work this year based on a bunch of different things going on with the county and with us and getting crossings and lots more things than just one thing. And so that was budgeted 410 grand. So I think it's more important that we spend some money and get the bridge done with trail dollars than spend park dollars on a trail for the bridge. Brayburn Trails is 500 grand, again budgeted for. Current estimate 726. That does not include the contingency like you had mentioned, Matt. But it also, that doesn't include all of the stuff. There's some irrigation that is going to be utilized from the water fund for putting in a well and irrigation there, or just connect the lines up so that it's has irrigation. And then there's some trail dollars as well that we'll utilize there. It's not a lot. I think it's like 98 grand or something like that. It's not crazy. And then Island Garden Cypress Cove. This is the one we got gifted from the developer. Thank goodness. And current estimate is 79 grand, but that doesn't include it. That doesn't include a half basketball court, which Marty and I talked yesterday, and we're not sure that the neighborhood wants a half basketball court. So if they don't want a half basketball court, that saves 46 grand off the estimate. Again, these are all estimates. I have no idea of actual dollars, but these are all estimates.
So historically, when I think we should have put more time into this, and the same with parks. But I mean, to me, if you have a community that gets a park, the park funds have to supply at least that much.
Yes. Historically, we spend roughly 3/4. I'm going to use 3/4 as a kind of air quote because it varies.
Sure.
Of the dollars that come in from that neighborhood are spent on that neighborhood park.
Oh.
So the dollars that come in from that, and that's just been our typical spend, has been roughly 3/4 of the money that comes in.
Okay.
Yeah.
The biggest issue I have with all of these neighborhood parks is we're spending big money on all these.
Yep. If you look back at the past ones, I mean,
and
$750,000.
The more we spend on these neighborhood parks, it's going to take that much longer to get Stevens finished, to get your so-called Andrews Park. I mean, it's years out there, unless of course you just say, hey, citizens, I want $30 million and let's do it today.
But on a daily basis, what do you think gets used more? I'll use the right term. A community park or
I called it a premier park.
A premier park like
Destination
LC Stevens on a daily basis.
I bet you a premier park gets used more than the neighborhood parks. Go over
Today,
to Andrews Park in the summertime. That splash pad is busy every
Andrews
day.
wouldn't be a premier park. That would be a community park.
That would be a community.
So that's a different park.
Okay.
A premier park would be, I'm guessing, be more like what Champlin put on the river.
Correct. Yeah. So Premier Park is more like you go there to look at the sites and the things. There's not activities going. I mean, there might be small amount of activities, but it's typically like you can refer. I don't know if you've ever been to Medicine Lake Playground there. It's run by Three Rivers Park. It's basically a playground and then a bunch of boat ramps and boat docks and whatever else. But essentially, that's what the commercial or the community park would be. So I want to talk about future park dollars, and then we can have the discussion for everything, so we know.
Must be a lot of cake left over.
Must be a lot of cake left over. Future long-term dollars. So in 2026, we have planned $500,000 for LC Stevens Phase 4. There's nothing that's quote unquote ready for Phase 4. I don't have it tell you. It's going to be this is Phase 4 because that's always what we've just had. We just said, oh, it's going to be Phase 4, and then we let the Parks Commission decide what they want to, or have say in what they want to. And then the growth area, which is the bottom half of Brayburn Trails Park. If you watch the Parks Commission meeting, and you'll see this at the next meeting, the growth area of Brayburn Trails Park is essentially just a baseball diamond and a bunch of open field play. So it's not going to cost $600,000 for the growth area of Brayburn Trails Park. It's just not. I mean, I'm
Why is
thinking more.
600
I'm thinking
on
more
there?
like 150 at the max.
That's
Why
what
is
was
600 on there?
budgeted. That's what was budgeted.
That
before we
was
knew
budgeted
about it.
before. So we
Oh,
budgeted
okay.
$600,000 to say it's going to be the growth area of that bottom half of that quad or the four corner park, and based on what the Parks Commission is saying, they're saying put all the amenities on the top and then just put something minimal on the bottom, which is essentially a baseball field and a formal or informal one, and natural grasses based,
And maybe parking, depending on
and more
how much
parking. Yep,
is
and
there.
parking for people to sit.
And that park is like a 10-acre park.
That is a
altogether.
10-acre park. Planned on a 10-acre park.
Yeah. See,
So-
there's another issue that I have is why don't we just keep it 5 and take that money from that and use the money elsewhere?
Because the land, it's more valuable to have the land. I mean, to get the land in the future is going to be really hard to get, and we don't get a lot of money. If we give up the land, I think what you say was like 1,600 per acre or something like that. Like, it's not a lot of money to get.
Yeah.
If we
No, I
give up
understand
the-
that, but
we
you're
can never
putting a
get the
park
land
on,
back.
you're spending money on a park. I mean,
Yeah, Lord.
I'm just talking about the conversation that was
I
had. I'm not
get, I
voicing
heard
my
that too.
opinion. I'm just.
Yeah.
I'm
And I-
not tracking this, so.
What we got to remember with that Four Corners Park is it serves two pretty big neighbourhoods. So you got all the Brayburn Trails there, another development that has to be defined
Right.
yet, plus all the Sundance Greens there. So there's a lot of potential people
It'll
there.
serve 4 developments at
Yeah.
minimum.
So when you say that we kind of plan on 3/4 of the money
Yep.
staying
That's
there,
tentatively. Yep.
does that include the value of the land, or how? Because I know that's what they have a
So
lot-
they will. Yeah, so that would include the value of the land. You are correct.
Okay, so
Yep.
then we don't spend that money since they give us the land.
Correct.
We allocate that, okay. I
Yep.
don't know if I'm saying this correctly, but if you got $10 for the land and $10 for the park fund,
Yep.
does $15 get spent there on top of the land? Or is it
So
the
you,
5 left on top of the 10
No,
of land?
it's 15.
15. Yeah.
Well,
It's 15.
okay, then that doesn't,
So yeah, so we get the land. We'll typically either get one or the other. For you either get the land or you get the fees. That's how it works. But if we get the land, it's on that one. For example, we can use Brayburn Trails as an example.
Yeah.
The land didn't cover all of the portion that they needed to give for the total development.
Yeah.
So the dollars that were left over had to come out of the park dedication dollars that came from each home that came in.
yeah.
And so those then get spent in that area. Roughly 3/4 of them end up at that park for whatever's above and beyond. So let's say I'll try to use simple math.
750 would be, you got the land plus 750 was spent back and 250 went in the general fund.
Correct. No, 250
Right.
stays in the fund for
There's $1 million, you
You're-
spent 750.
for
On
Mayor-
this park, and the
Yeah.
other 250 went to the parks overall.
went to the overall parks, as in like the Premier Park or LC Stevens Park, because otherwise we
Right.
wouldn't have any money related to LC Stevens to do anything there.
I know, that's just what I'm hearing is we'd spend effectively the 250 out of 2 million. So it wouldn't be a quarter, it'd be 8 or 1/8. So if
Sure,
they-
I get yes.
If you're counting the land
If
value.
you're counting the land value, yes, that's correct.
I am, because they
Yep.
are,
Yep.
right? The developers are.
Correct.
If they could give the entire
And
thing.
that's like I
in
said,
land-
that's what we've done historically, and I'm not saying that's right, wrong, or indifferent. I'm just saying
It
this
just
is what-
means that this community,
Yep.
whatever it is,
Mm-hmm.
didn't help with any regional or any premier.
Correct.
Well,
That's
they
what
did,
it
they
means.
did.
It did, but it's not
That's
at
what's
a
funding LC
rate
Stevens
of,
right now.
Yeah, it's not at the same rate of it's funding the
It's
new.
not,
So
it's not a quarter.
It's
of
not
the
a quarter.
money.
That's all you
yeah,
get.
yeah. So it's the idea of that. From what I've gathered, is it's supposed to be roughly a quarter. And I would say if you looked at with the land value, you're at an eighth.
Yeah.
But
And I'm guessing that most of the money we put into, say, the regional parks came from commercial.
yes,
Yep.
So
Yep.
it wouldn't, the developments didn't.
yep.
the
So
residential
most of the dollars
developments
that are brought in from the development go to the development from the neighborhood park, which
Yeah.
is what I'm trying to say. That's how we've done it historically, and that I think that's what Councilmember
Yeah.
Solanek's issue is, or not issue, but
I'm
like,
trying to take a little bit
question.
of that back so that we can
Right.
get our other parks.
Can we
to-
spend less money on those neighborhood parks and put more money towards a premier or a community park? And staff, I don't care which way we do it, doesn't matter to me.
Yeah.
But we haven't had the conversation that I'm aware of since I've been here to have that conversation of
That is correct.
of
It hasn't
where
happened.
the
It
dollars
hasn't
are.
happened in
It's
10
never
years.
happened.
Correct. Yeah, well,
And I've
we're
never.
changing things now. So
And you know what? The park commission never used to do squat, so I don't know where it happened.
Mm-hmm.
I think it happened in the back.
Yeah.
In the back there.
So that is why I want to have the discussion. I think it's a
Yeah.
good point to talk about is where do we want to spend the dollars at, and then that also helps us with future planning for long-term planning of
Right.
when Marty and I look down and go, okay, how much can we spend on this park, and the costs are going up for the park, but we want to provide something back to the neighborhood because we don't want to take all of their money away, but at the same point you don't want to put all the money back in there because then you don't have enough money for your premier parks or your community parks that will serve the entire community.
Yeah.
So I think it's a great discussion, but I do want to make sure everyone knows that if we plan out and do so after 2028, essentially the dollars are gone. If we do LC Stevens Phase 5, I base it on 200 new homes a year or the equivalent commercial number of units at a rate of $4,500 now per home, $5,000 in 26 and $5,500 by 2028. That's the rough increases that you'll see in the park dedication per home. We are out of money and exhausted by 2028 if we do a $5 million LC Stevens Phase 5.
What is that Phase 5?
We don't know.
We don't know yet.
Yeah.
But
They
you
just
got
put a
$5
dollar
million.
amount there.
So
Wasn't
the
that originally
fa-
like the weddings event?
Yeah, so the
Yeah.
Phase 5 is designed or planned on a facility that would do and be similar to, and I'm not sure if you guys have visited, a Central Park in Maple Grove or a 21st Century Bank Event Center on the property that would have parking and being able to have birthday parties, conference room, yada, yada, yada on that property. So the $5 million number is not a set number. It's just earmarked and put $5 million in there. And I think it was put in there for $5 million because it brings the fund almost down to zero exactly. So it just said, oh, well, we got $5 million left, let's spend it. So again, we have not, honestly, I don't know, Marty and I don't look at this one much. It's mostly just roll it forward. And I'll tell you, I haven't spent a lot of time on it. Good, bad, or indifferent. I'm just being honest
Yeah, but
on
now I get it.
planning those
Yeah.
long-term plans out. And this is an important discussion to have. And I don't know
just
if
wanna
we'll solve it tonight, but
I want to see Stevens develop faster than it has. And next year, or this year, for 500 grand, the bridge is taking 250 of it, so you're not going to get hardly anything built.
yeah, so 248.2 will give us I think it's the plan, then the band shell, and then,
Band shell.
The signage.
oh yeah, signage comes out of a different fund, gate comes out of this fund.
Some other bits and pieces.
Yeah.
But then we talked about doing some other stuff in there.
Yes.
Some additional
Yeah, so we thought about doing is, okay, can we take the 250 out of trails for the bridge? And that allocates out more, $250,000 extra dollars that we could spend on other amenities at that park. And to me, I would love to have more parking at that park, or being able to have more planned out parking.
Well, you're really going
Yeah,
to
what
need
was
to come up with a
present-
design then, because that big area out in front,
So what was planned and
What was presented
Yeah.
to the Parks Commission was that the 536 cost included erosion costs, expanded performance stage and seating area, a north bridge, a park entrance sign. We have to put an entry, get in at the old entrance per the county, so that was included in there, as well as irrigation and contingency was, what is that, 650?
Yep, so the bridge alone is 250 of that. I think the sign is like 20 or 40 grand, which we already have allocated for in the capital facilities fund, so that comes out of a different bucket. And that's why you're seeing 248 here versus what was presented at the Parks Commission, is because Marty and I went through yesterday and said, well, where are these dollars coming from? Are they all coming from parks, or are they gonna come from other areas?
Yeah. I think we should.
I don't think we should
use
group everything in
trails
parks
wherever
and just say,
we can.
hey, parks can pay for everything, because that doesn't, then that limits us for what we can do.
And there was some extra money from what we didn't spend on the bridge last year, which was 105,000, I think.
Okay.
the band shell, you're talking about a cover over the deal?
Yeah, and extending some of the seating around
And
there.
we're going to see that cover before it's actually built, so that we
Yeah,
don't get
we-
whatever
well-
you call it?
Where?
We will
Pergola.
we will give you some visuals. Yeah,
Pergola, won't be a pergola.
it won't be a pergola. No, it's going to be a proper covered thing. I mean, you saw what was presented to the Parks Commission. There's 3 or 4 different designs there, so we will.
I didn't see it.
Was that
Oh,
You were at that meeting.
down by the river?
Yeah.
I
Yes.
don't recall seeing it.
Because that one down by the river, and I didn't, at the time, I voiced my problem with it, but it's not very big.
I know we
It's
could.
dry.
I think the plans are to expand that a little bit as
Oh,
well.
all right.
Expand it, make it shell over to that,
Yeah.
you have the amphitheater kind of feel, so it's not
Yeah.
projecting over the river, it's projecting back.
That whole Parks Commission wanted the band shell over on the other end by the barn.
No?
Yeah, they
That sounds
did.
good.
There was
We'll have to agree to
discuss-
disagree, Scott. We can watch the meeting, but
There was a discussion about that when we did the parks.
there was a discussion, but that's
Yeah.
not what the Parks Commission decided.
No.
Yep.
Yeah, so
Okay.
it's important to know that here's where we're spending our money now, but I think it's more important to know how do we want to spend future dollars as we have more commercial and more residential coming in to Dayton. How do we want to spend those dollars? We don't have another park, quote unquote, to plan besides that growth area one, which I mentioned in 2026, and that's
Yep.
planned for 600 grand. And there is, based on what I've seen from the concept plan, which you'll see at the next meeting, there's no way we're spending 600 grand on that. If we spend 600 grand, I don't know what we put in there. The Taj Mahal baseball fields and the most superior
Hey,
grass.
you know
I've ever
what?
seen
I
in
can
my
say
life.
that about
Will
a
the
lot of-
Twins help us with that? Because I've heard that the Twins
Yeah.
will help fund baseball fields.
Yeah, they helped us with Old Village, the McNeil
McNeil.
Field there. They donated funding for that, and we would, if this is going to be used for a neighbourhood park, or even if CDAA want to use it, I think that we would stand a chance of getting some funding from them for one part of it or another.
So you don't think we'll hit 600 on this?
Not even close.
All right.
I would be surprised if we spent half, if not less than a third of the 600 grand.
And I
I
think
would
it
argue
was,
that both the Parks Commission and the residents, I don't want to misspeak on behalf of the Parks Commission, because remember here tonight, nor ever want to speak on behalf of them, but if we're not going to use all that $600,000 for the growth area, some of that should go to what's needed to get
That's
it
the
done this year. We do it some this year and some next year, but
That's the
for
next
the
question. we have to deal with.
$500,000 that was budgeted for this year, you can't really get any amenities other than a playground. So
yeah, that was part of the conversation that we had the other day.
Yes. Is how do we
I'm
fund
not saying all of that. 'cause
budgeted 500 grand and then we want amenities that cost 725. The math doesn't add up. And so we have to figure out, okay, are we doing less at the park? Are we doing it in phases? Are we doing more later? Are we doing more now? Are we pre-spending money that we get in the future? I'm not sure what the right direction is either. And so that'll be another conversation we need to have with council as well. So this does not mean that this is not the final discussion, and I don't need a whole lot of direction right now.
Okay.
But it is great to have some feedback. And this is not a discussion that needs to happen, again, right today, but at the next meeting, there's going to be some for direction of what do we want to go out for bid for at the Parks Commission. And we'll provide all that information as much
I
as
can
we
hear
can.
you doing it, and
I'll get there.
I'm struggling. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, good conversation. So my feedback around this is I feel like the neighborhood parks, I mean, those residents are essentially paying for that, and they are helping fund to an eighth or something of those dollars that they pay to the broader community. Yeah, I wish it was more, but it looks like, for a decent neighborhood park, we've been spending $750. So I don't know that, we get away with that. None of those parks are that lavish. I think they're nice parks, and they meet what people expect from us. So I don't think there's a lot to trim out of there. But since they're essentially self-funding, they don't exist until the neighborhood is there, and they don't, and they're paying for it essentially. So I'm okay with that model. Having said that, I want Elsie Stevens Park finished in my lifetime, and
I agree.
The clock's ticking. And I just feel like
You want
we're.
to talk?
No, there's
But
nothing
you gotta
eminent
remember
in me,
though,
but
that thing sat for 10 years.
I know it.
Looking like a dump.
For as long as I've lived here, there's been a sign out there saying developing soon, and it's coming, it's becoming something, but
it is, yeah.
we're probably at the 25% point on this thing, and I really feel like it is our premier park, and that we need to find a way to put more emphasis on getting that thing done sooner. I know we talked about it as potentially one of our referendum questions, and we'll take that discussion where it needs to go, but that's my priority anyway. And past that, I think that we need to continue to I think we need to be more aggressive about building trails. To a large degree, we are, we're sort of self-funding those too as development kind of creeps through the area. I wish we would be more aggressive than that and get some trails to connect some of these different areas. And some of them aren't going to be until post-2050 that they ever get developed. And so us taking the lead on on planting the trail where we think it best belongs. I think we need to be doing more of that. So that's my feedback.
Sure.
I think Councilman Shantz and I are aligned on this. I too think I think Elsie Stevens is great. I think we need to make sure we have good connectivity to it, because if we're going to have large events there, even if we add parking, we're never going to have enough parking, right? And so having the availability, I lived in Coon Rapids for 7 years, and so they do a big fireworks show, and my neighbors would bike because there were safe bike trails to get from our house to there. It was a 15-minute drive, and it was probably a 40-minute bike, but they'd bike every 4th of July down to the park to go watch the fireworks on 4th of July, and that's what their family did. They did it with their kids when they were little. When they got older, their kids came back to their house, brought their grandkids, and they still do it. And so I think the connectivity in the city is really important, and I think we need a big focus on that, because I think allowing people to have safe ways to access it that aren't vehicle related is really a big thing. And we hear it from all the residents as we get more traffic and how hard it is to move down our roads, that we need safe ways for people to get around. So
Well, and people don't, at least the ones I talk to, don't seem to have a problem with trails. They want more trails.
yeah,
We get the opposite response on parks, but they want more trails. That trail on North Diamond, or on the north side of the River Road, I think is gonna open up.
It's gonna help a lot.
Okay, quite a bit to at least,
And
that part of it.
Candidly, I think we're a short trail away from Ion Gardens to
Right.
Pineview Meadows, to then connecting a huge chunk of the city, because it gets anyone that, Sundance Woods, Sundance Greens, that whole area, they can get in Elm Creek Park,
Right.
Three Rivers, and they can go all the way through Three Rivers, get off at Pineview, go down, and they can get there. So we are this is what the Parks Commission was heavily focused on, which is,
Yeah.
when we spend our trails money, how do we get connectivity? And if we're not going to do the piece between the Champlain border and Balsam there, we should look at whatever was next on that list that they provided in the order and say, this is what we should try to get done this year, because I think connectivity is a big opportunity for our city. And I think when we look at developments, when we look at Ion Gardens, you and I have talked, there were some misses by previous staff and previous DAIS members on what we could do to maybe provide some more connectivity that's now too late to do. So unfortunately, we missed some opportunities there, and we just have to be on top of that when we're looking at development plans and everything else. How do we make sure there's good connectivity in the city?
Are we also, I know recently, at least with, I think we started it with River Trails, I think, and we did it somewhat with, I was going to say there was a little bit of Sundance, but having these open houses where people actually come in and tell us, I think that's helpful, but I do have concerns about us building things that don't get used. Half courts, at least from what I've seen, they don't seem to get a lot of use.
It's the most used item in our park, and I can see it from my office window.
Years.
Yes, there is almost always, when it's outside of school hours, there's almost always a kid there, to the point that some of the neighbors
Sure.
complain because it's after dusk and the park's closed and they're still out there playing basketball. So it gets used, I would say, maybe more than the playground at certain times.
Yeah,
it is
I don't know,
not the most used feature. The basketball court is. And we only have one hoop.
Just as long as we can, not, because those things sink a lot of resources too. So if we're using big money, it'd be nice to use big money.
Yeah, so
Stuff that gets used,
one
but-
hoop, half basketball court roughly costs about that 46 grand. That's what it costs to put in the basketball court, which is painted lines and tarred and get the basketball hoop in and I don't remember what else is on there, but there's some other things I think go on.
What about, have we seen, where we put in, what was it, the golf?
Chipping Green.
Chipping Green, that was big money.
Yeah, how's that?
I've seen people out there using it,
Have you? Okay.
I was out there today and there was a guy with 3 kids out there playing on it. So it's early season, but
Okay.
I've seen plenty of usage in there.
Okay.
The one thing, and during the days, when I'm around and about, I don't see much for people in pickleball courts, but I know that they get used a lot.
Weekends probably.
Probably outside of the hours that I'm around town, probably weekends.
And it could
Tuesday
be
mornings at
after
ours
nap
gets
time.
used. There's like a group that comes every Tuesday morning.
It could be that's because that was the parents saying what they wanted, not the kids. And the kids apparently maybe want the half court, and the parents want the go.
It could completely depend on the neighborhood too. Like
Yeah.
I know when the Brayburn Trails folks showed up, part of the reason they were pushing for a full basketball court is because they also want to be able to use it for like inline skate practice when people use it for basketball, because then they could use it for that. So it serves dual purpose. So for that neighborhood, they might want that more, but that's what their kids need. You know, so maybe there are half basketball courts that don't get used. I can just tell you what gets used in ours. The piece I'll add to this is we often talk about L.C. Stevens and Cloquet Overlook and technically River Hills as separate parks, but they're all one.
That's all connected.
They're all one connected giant park, and I think one thing we'd be mindful of with those parks is that we're not, in my mind, duplicating. I know they're 3 separate parks, but duplicating what's going in one place or the other, and mindful of also, like, if you're going to have a big event at an event center, you might have a bunch of parents with kids that all of a sudden walk over to River. So like, there's impacts that has to the neighboring parks and communities, and so I think it's just something to be really mindful of too. Is we often talk about them as separate, but the 3 combined have got to be 40 acres almost.
Well,
Yeah.
River Hills is like 24, right?
Somewhere in that line,
Yeah.
and then
especially because you got the underpass. I mean, that
Yeah.
really opened that thing up.
Yep.
So,
Yeah.
I think that, you know, what we find with these neighborhood meetings, that we try to give the neighborhood what they want in there. And you get, you know, we've had some really good feedback, and, you know, but a lot of the things, you talk about having different things in the parks. Everybody wants a zip line, you know?
yeah, and I know at, what's the park?
Rivers Bend.
Yeah. Every time I see kids over there, when I bring my kids over there, they're on that thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are.
They're huge.
Yeah,
So,
they're huge.
I mean, that, you know, when we do these parks, that there's more amenities that people are expecting in a park, whereas when, you know, Rivers Bend was there, we didn't even have a playground there forever, you know?
Yes.
There was an old playground there.
Rocket ship.
Yeah. But then
Yeah,
when we
that was-
replaced that, it brought a lot of children and kids to that area just because
Yeah.
of the park and the playground. So people are expecting more. They want more of, you know, the pickleball courts and the basketball courts and that activity as well as the playground stuff, just because that's, you know, that's what the kids are needing.
Well, I've always wanted the commissions to take more ownership of this stuff, and I think as long as the Parks Commission is cognizant of the fact that, you know, the money needs to be allocated well, you know, whatever that means.
And they get direction from city staff. I don't think they're asking to take money from L.C. Stevens and put it towards the other one. They're told this is kind of how much budget you have for this park, make it work kind of thing.
Yeah.
So if you have more direction to not continue the conversation, just send me an email or whatever, and we can have a future conversation on this. And this is not, you know, dead in the water, and we're going to just move on and that's it, because it's a great first conversation. But I think there is a bigger thing to fry here, and it's going to be how do we spend the money in the future, and also how are we spending the money this year too. So, anything else on that
Okay.
one?
No, I think that's good. That's fine.
Okay.
Good first deal.
Yep. Perfect. Hopefully the rest of the items take about 5 minutes.
Hopefully, because we are late. Okay, item N.
Yep. Mayor, members of council, this is approving a AE2S, which is a company that does water engineering to complete technical review on the Wellhead treatment plant.
Something that
this-
needs to be done, right?
Yep, I think this is something that we should start doing more in the future. This is basically getting a second opinion on things so that we're not only using one person's opinion, but others. Sometimes you can refer to it, and Councilmember Sean brought this to my attention. He called it commissioning. That's what he did during his time and tenure, is that basically a second look and testing things. AE2S did not want to provide a full commissioning report. They just wanted to say, okay, let me take a look at the review. Let me look and see if you're missing anything on the plan. Would we do anything differently, so on and so forth. And then they typically do a review afterwards, what that they can do, and then they'll do a separate proposal for that, which would be coming in and testing everything. They looked at it as, okay, your engineer is supposed to tell you what's supposed to be in the plan, and if they don't put something in, they're going to be the ones on the hook. We're happy to come in and test basically afterwards, test through things to verify that it's working how it's supposed to, basically. So their idea was, can we do a proposal for this technical review while we're waiting? It's a good time to do it. Just happened to work out well for us. And then we'll do a future proposal based on what they come back from that on doing some sort of testing or review after, which is what Councilmember Sean had said, basically, that the commissioning was to verify stuff as well, and we'll get better at doing this, but they didn't call it commissioning, they called it a technical oh, what do they call it? It's not a second opinion. They called it some other word than commission. Or review, yeah.
A review of some sort, but.
Which I thought their proposal was very reasonable. I think it was like $1,500 or something
Yeah,
like that.
to me, we've just probably wasted more time.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
I
I think this is important to do
these are
moving
overrated.
forward.
Obviously, I've been pushing this, and
Yep.
especially on projects like this that are complex. I think this is a great first step in it. I think that having another set of eyes on the plan review to make sure that we've got a design that's going to get what we need out of it is worth $1,500 easily. The commissioning piece of it, I think we still want to talk more about. Doing that, that's the real, I'll call it witness testing to say that, yes, it does perform as it was designed. And so some of that's a second check on the builder as well, to make sure that the things are flowing as they should, the pipes are connected the way they're supposed to be. And every project that I've done commissioning on in the past, and especially big mechanical projects, it has more than paid for itself in the things that it uncovers that would have been liabilities later on. And so I think this is a great first step. I think that we should continue to talk to them further about doing more on the actual.
They only want to provide a proposal
functional
for what they
testing.
want to do the first, and then they said, we'll come back and do something else.
Well, and they can probably give us a better proposal once they understand the design.
Yep.
So I agree, we should have them come out for this. I think having them come back afterwards is as impactful, if not more than this piece. And this piece is important, but I think it's important that at the end it works the way it's supposed to, and so that's the piece I really want to see. Page 83, they put the cost plus reimbursement for all project-related expenses, and then they have like mileage and things like that can be added to it. So I'm guessing that's not going to be substantial. It's not going to come with like $7,000 in expenses and $1,500 for the work. So
Yeah, all of this is going to be
Yep.
behind the desktop.
Yep.
If they have to come out and review things, that's why they put that in there.
Okay.
So they have to go, okay, mileage to drive from their office to there, they're going to
Okay.
reimburse us. But
they weren't coming every day to look at, was my
No.
question. And then the follow-up that I have on this is we should look at doing this for Well House 5. I know we approve Well House 5, but I think it's a next step to do with that too. That's a pretty substantial cost.
Sure.
We should make sure that the pump that's going in there, everything works as it should and is designed properly. So
Sure.
that'd be my added piece. But I think it's a great thing for us to do, especially for the cost.
sure, sounds great.
All right, need a motion in a second.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
Approve it.
I was going to give you the honors. It was your idea. Sorry.
Sorry.
All right, any more discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. Motion carries 5-0. Street sweeping contract, item O.
This is pretty cut and dry. We'll make a
Yep.
motion to approve it.
I'll second.
Hold on. I did have a question on the bids. Why were the bids on this time rather than distance?
So it's been time.
Well, huh?
It's been
Per
time.
hour, yeah.
In past years, it's been time.
I know, and I never understood it. It's so many miles. And what if they drive really slow? I just,
Well, have you
I
ever
mean-
seen a street sweeper? Ain't the
yeah,
fastest thing in the world.
I know, but it just
the
seems
Ferrari
like an odd.
Well, they always have one of our guys with them, so
I understand all that. It just seemed odd to me that it's.
it's kind of like with the fire equipment. You fill it out per hour with your driver and your equipment. That's just how it's always done.
All right. Yep. All right. Got a motion and a second. Anybody else? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. Motion carries 5-0.
We'll ask for a quote next time based on distance.
Just,
See what they say.
if this is what they normally do, it just struck
It's
me.
always been time.
And the dust control, I had the same question. So let's get on to
By
that.
the gallon.
It's by the
It's
gallon.
by the gallon, but what if this company puts this much on and this company, it's just,
They apply it at a rate. So they
but
set their
I
rate
didn't see the rate in the bid, so that's why I was confused. So
at a 0.3 rate.
It's been the same all the time.
Yeah.
I'll make a motion that we approve this too.
All right.
Okay.
Any more discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. Motion carries 5-0. Permanent easement to Three Rivers Park District.
I had one question on this, if that's okay, Marty. Once we give them the easement, who clears the snow in the winter?
So there'll be an agreement between us and
Three Rivers Park District. Currently, we clear the trails through there. and they don't generally clear their trails in the winter.
So will we is the plan for us to continue to clear?
I would.
I have some people reach out to me and want to make sure they're able to go on walks. That's why they're.
I like to keep them clear because people do want to use them. We've always done that with Three Rivers Park District. It's kind of an informal agreement. If we want to do something more formal, I'm sure we can do that.
As long as you're not getting yelled at. I'm fine with it.
No, so we will clear all of our area. It's like Pineview. We clear Pineview, but we don't go into the Park District to go through there. Whatever's in the city, we will take care of.
Okay, thank you.
So I'll make a motion to approve this too.
Scott,
I'll second.
any more discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no.
Well, that's how you get things done.
5-0. All right, do we want to get into item J?
It is up, it is up to you guys if you guys want to talk about it and have time. Amy is here at the next meeting as well. I know that Councilman Sean is not, so it's up to you guys 100%.
I don't have any
I'm
questions.
okay
answered,
with
so.
waiting. I will probably call into the meeting, and I can certainly forward any questions that I have. But
We could do it
you guys want to
3
do it?
meetings too, because she's here every last meeting of the month.
Right.
So if that works better, I don't know if it's something that's dire or not. That's your call.
I don't think there's anything that's urgent about it. I mean, we've had the discussion about the fire facility, that does depend a bit on this, how our understanding of this thing plays out. But to me, it doesn't matter if we do it over the next week or the next month.
Okay.
Sure.
All right. Sounds like
it's a
we
pretty
can push
heavy
it out.
agenda on the 26th, so we may just push it to the next for a second meeting.
And you're
Unless-
also welcome to email questions to me too, and I can respond to you that way.
Okay.
Okay.
So if there are no other issues, if there are no objections, we will be adjourned, and we're adjourned.